Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. My Hero Academia. Obtain Soul Fruit and the Strongest Wooden Power. Chapter 51. The Strength of the Explosive Hero to Win His Own. Yunfang had roughly understood it before. For Yunfang, Bakugao is the best candidate to test the Immortal Mode. Therefore, a few minutes before the start of the game, Yunfang had already entered the Immortal Mode. Have you noticed that the momentum of Yunfang is different? One of the classmates greeted the people around him. Yes, why didn't I find out? It still feels the same as before. Erlang Shangshang said curiously. I don't know if the momentum is different, but the corner of his eye now seems to have an extra eyeshadow. 8 million said slowly. He put on makeup. It won't really fake. Quote, do you think Yunfang would do that kind of boring thing? Boon Zhao Jia interjected in the back. I don't think so. Midoriya-eyed Hissa replied. It may be due to personality. 8 million hundred reasoned. Well, I think so too. Erlang sounded incense. At the moment, in the ring, Bakugao Shengji was still the same long Aoshan expression, his hands were in his trouser pockets, and his eyes were staring at Yunfang. Don't let me down, Yunfang said. When Bakugao Shengji heard this, he immediately laughed evilly. Ah, what do you say, boy? Quote, I hope you don't let me work in vain. Yunfang continued. Cut. Bakugao Katsuki said disdainfully. The game begins. Midnight roared loudly. As soon as Midnight's voice fell, Bakugao Shengji just wanted to run to Yunfang, but unexpectedly, Yunfang suddenly appeared in front of him. Bakugao Katsuji was stunned suddenly, and quickly reacted, and his own personality bombarded in front of him. Boom! The ring was immediately peeled off by the flames. When the flames dispersed, Yunfang appeared in front of Bakugao again. Seeing Yunfang, who had nothing to do, Bakugao Shengji was slightly startled and muttered, I know that you kid is not so easy to kill. Quote, it has become an immortal mode, whether it is attack, defense, or perception, it has been comprehensively improved. It seems that these attacks are not very effective for me now. Yunfang said with a slight smile to Bakugao Shengji. Bakugao Shengji frowned, roared angrily, and rushed towards Yunfang. Above the palm of the hand, the fire is condensed, and each palm is hit, as if a missile has been launched. Although the power is not very weak, if you want Yunfang to be injured, the premise is to hit. The result was a pity, and every palm of the explosive hero won the past. In half a minute or so, the ring was already almost half broken. Why don't you use personality, you fool? Don't underestimate me anymore. Okay, I'm going to slaughter you. I want an impeccable overwhelming first. Even if I win a garbage that releases water, I can't get a real championship. Bakugao Katsuji roared again. The speed is much faster than before. All in all, he is much stronger now than when he first entered the school before, no matter what aspect. Okay, since you said so, as a classmate, I'll give you a face. Yunfang jumped backwards with a heel. Hearing Yunfang say this, Bakugao Shengji did not immediately pursue, and sneered, that's right, that's it. Quote. Saying that, Bakugao Katsuki quickly jumped into the midair, and in the midair, he used his personality to make a vortex-type thing. Since you are standing in front of me and standing in this ring, you have to deal with it with all your strength. As you wish, Yunfang calmly counted. Immediately dancing his hands, thousands of tree roots jumped out from the ground, and in the next second, they fused together to form a super large wooden thorn, which was close to Bakugao Sheng. Durian cannon, big bang. Bakugao shouted, and then hit the wooden thorn that was close to him. Boom! In the ring, a huge explosion sounded, and debris of wooden thorns flew everywhere. Thick black smoke instantly enveloped this ring. When the audience saw this scene, they all quieted down, looking worriedly at the thick black smoke on the ring. At this moment, even the cement division panicked. He wanted to stop the game just now, but while hesitating, they attacked together. Brescent Mac said to Aizawa on the side, your class, is that how it is taught? Quote. In fact, the current Aizawa Shuda is also very worried. After all, Yunfang's strength, he has some understanding. The huge wooden thorn just now, if the explosive victory cannot be accepted, there will inevitably be a danger to life. These two guys, don't think that the recovery girl is around and do whatever you want. Aizawa was also excited at this moment. The black smoke above the ring was blown away by the breeze, and the figure of Yunfang once again appeared in front of the audience. Seeing that they were all safe and sound, there was warm applause in the audience. It's worthy of being a student of the hero department. Yes, this fight scene is different. I haven't seen such a wonderful duel for a long time. It seems that watching the game today is really a good choice. The audience theories in the audience rose. It scared me. There is no danger. It is worthy of being a student of the hero subject. Brescent Mac couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw that the clouds and wind above the ring and the explosive victory were all safe. Snap. Aizawa sat on the chair, not to mention that Brescent Mac was startled, and even he, as the head teacher, just accelerated his heartbeat. However, he also has something to be happy about. He doesn't know if Yunfeng has become stronger, because the feeling that Yunfeng gives him is deeply hidden. However, Bakugao has become stronger, and he has seen it in his eyes. In the ring, Bakugao Katsuki gasped, stiffened his face, and looked at Yunfeng. And on the side of the cloud wind, breathing as always, makes people feel very lost. The strength is really not covered. I am getting more and more excited. Bakugao Katsuki roared loudly. In the palms of his hands, boom, 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 the fire began to erupt. No matter how excited you are, with your current strength, you can't win me. Yunfeng said calmly. Bakugao Shungji suddenly erected, and said with a big grin, "You fool, what are you talking about? I slaughtered you." Quote. "If you don't believe me, try it." Bakugao Shungji roared angrily again, and then landed on both feet, and quickly rushed towards the cloud wind. The fire condensed in his hands, and he constantly attacked the clouds and winds. But basically every blow hit the wooden protective shield made by Yunfeng, and it was impossible to get close to Yunfeng. The anger of the explosive hero is getting bigger and bigger, and the speed of the attack is getting faster and faster. However, no matter how fast he was, he had just broken the shield and wanted to take a step forward, but the shield was immediately repaired. This series of actions couldn't help but make him feel helpless. Because his personality is completely useless to Yunfeng. "Do you want to keep going?" Yunfeng asked. "Don't underestimate me," Bakugao shouted. "Okay, then let you see where the gap between my strength and yours is." The clouds and wind were silent. Then he jumped over the wooden protective escape. And Bakugao Katsuji also quickly launched an attack towards Yunfeng. Yunfeng's figure flashed, dodged easily, and his backhand was a punch in the abdomen of Bakugao Shungji. Poof! Bakugao Katsuji instantly retreated several meters, and seeing that he was about to go out of the field, he quickly used his personality to blast and bombard his back. Let the aftermath bounce itself back. Abominable. Bakugao Shungji gritted his teeth and recklessly continued to rush towards Yunfeng. Durian cannon, big explosion. While running wildly all the way, he condensed again, but because the condensation time was very short, the power was not too great. In fact, you are not weak, but I am too strong. Although your weakness is recklessness, perhaps, in the same strength as you, this is not a problem, but for me, this will become your fatal problem. Yunfeng said slowly. The next moment, he danced his hands, and because of the cloud wind that entered the immortal mode, he had the power of nature at this moment, regardless of the sending of moves. It's still the same as everything has already been upgraded. Of course, the physical strength has been strongly replenished. Drink, Yunfeng shouted. The entire ring directly began to vibrate. In the next second, in the ring, dozens of tree roots the size of adults directly burst out. There is a spiritual attack towards the Bakugan victory. Bakugao realized that something was wrong, and quickly dodged the attack with a heel. However, before he could land steadily, the root of the tree on the other side attacked him again. Ah! Bakugao Katsuki roared angrily, constantly using Bakugai's personality to attack the root of the tree. However, after less than 10 seconds, he was directly wrapped around the abdomen by a huge tree root and hung him. Originally, he wanted to resist, but the next moment, the other roots just bound his feet and hands, leaving him with no ability to resist at all. At this moment, in the seat of Class B, Shiozaki looked at Yunfeng intently. "Shiozaki, his personality is like yours." One of the men began to say to Shiozaki. "It's not like it anymore, it's completely a perverted version of Shiozaki." Another man added. "So powerful, I've heard others say that he is not a Bao." "No, such a strong person still needs to take the entrance exam." "It's true, because I was there at the time, but I haven't seen him since I entered the exam room until the end of the exam. Many people think that he is here to interfere with other people's exams. Yunfeng looked at the explosive hero in the midair, calmly counting. Although Bakugao Shengji was very unwilling in his heart at this time, he could not change the facts. His self-esteem is strong, and although he loses, he is unwilling to say from his mouth that he is weaker than others. However, for Yunfeng, often this kind of person will not easily change his words. Bakugao wins over yourself, can you still act? Midnight raised the leather whip in his hand and asked the Bakugai Katsuji in the ring. However, Bakugao Katsuji just gritted his teeth and did not answer her words. The next moment, Yunfeng lifted all the surrounding trees, and Bakugao Katsuji also fell to the ground. Bakugao Katsuki's first action was to put his hands in his trouser pockets, and without saying a word, he turned around and walked towards the outside of the field. But without taking a few steps, he seemed to remember something, stopped the steps in his feet, and his face was a little hideous. This is just the beginning, next time, I will win. Quote, I'm waiting for you. Yunfeng smiled slightly, and when Bakugao Shengji heard the words admit defeat, the corners of his mouth twitched. The cheers sounded again, and Yunfeng silently returned to the lounge. In this way, this year's sports festival has come to an end. After Yunfeng returned to rest, he stopped for 10 minutes in between, because when Yunfeng fought against Bakugao, he basically destroyed the entire ring. But fortunately, it is not a big deal, because one of them has a personality that can release cement, but it is still the kind that does it immediately. After 10 minutes, the match between Boom and Frost begins. He originally insisted on not using the ability to burn, but just when he was fighting against Midori Valley, he had an epiphany, he wanted to live for himself, not as a tool for anyone. With all his strength, Chong Dark Treading naturally fell downwind. It was also clear that it was Bang Jia who won. After all, his dad is the second most professional hero. This battle is also quite exciting. Aizawa originally wanted to sleep, but after knowing that the final was Yunfeng vs Bang Scorched, he decided to sleep after watching it. Brescent Mac, Aizawa shouted softly. Brescent Mac looked puzzled. Aizawa, after all, he pulled him over to help explain, from the beginning to the moment just now, but he didn't say a word. Why do you have to retreat 3 rows? Not likely, because the auditorium is full. Quote, the personalities of the two of them are launched on a large scale, and I say this for the safety of the audience, and as for the audience seats are full, ask the people in the back 3 rows to tell them to stand and watch. Brescent Mac hesitated, but finally nodded. That is, the back 3 rows still have to stand and watch, which is 2 pit. Alas, no way, it's the last one anyway, just stand. What? I didn't have this situation in previous years. Another professional hero interjected. But, don't forget, today there is the son of the hero Andeva. The masked female professional hero said slowly. Even if it is Olmet's son, at this age, how strong can he be and surpass professional heroes? Don't be kidding, even if I fight, I dare not say that it can affect the audience in the first 3 rows of the road, after all, the ring is some distance from here. The orc professional hero sneered. Okay, then let's see how the school explains it later. Masked professional heroines don't want to argue about these meaningless topics. Scorched Boy, Cloud Wind Boy, Olmet looked at the two of them with a worried expression. Continue to the end, let's have a decisive battle last time. Boom Zhao said in a cold tone. Use the other half of my body's ability to have a chance to defeat you. Boom said calmly. Is that half of the ability is inherited from his father, but good and bad are also his own ability, why should he not live with himself? As soon as the words fell, Bang Jiao immediately attacked, raised his right foot, and stepped directly on the ground. Suddenly, a layer of cold ice rushed towards the cloud wind, and the nature behind was the crystal-like ice thorn. Snap, syllable, syllable, quote, a breath of cold breath came out of his mouth, and his right face was already covered with a thin layer of cold ice. But the next moment, his left body began to burn, and in the blink of an eye, the thin layer of cold ice on his right face disappeared. Sure enough, the sightseeing tours are all fake, in fact, you have been training alone for half a month. Boom Frost reasoned. Boom Zhao said calmly, and then quickly pressed down, and slapped his hands on the ring. Whoops! Above the ring, countless ice thorns suddenly rose, and the power was far higher than the first time. And the other 9% is purely for aesthetics. Yun Feng said, his hands turned into wood, and he kept punching towards the oncoming ice thorns. But if it is used against a person, then that person only needs to smash the ice thorn in front of him, basically cracking this trick. Saying that, Yunfang drank loudly, and the next moment, under the ring, thousands of tree roots burst out, pierced through the ice, and began to spread and grow, becoming huge trees. It's so powerful, it's worthy of being a box-pressing character in Class A. The B-class man exclaimed. The tricks of the two people are large-scale, no wonder the school authorities let the audience back 3 rows. Inside the ring, a smile leaked out of the ring. Do you know why I made so much cold ice? Quote. As he spoke, the body on the left side of the scorched frozen burned even more huge than before. Hearing this, Boomfrost was suddenly startled. Emperor Yan, it's stuffy enough to stay inside, it's time to come out and breathe. Yunfang continued. As soon as Yunfang's voice fell, a golden light flashed in his abdomen. The next moment, a cute golden sphere appeared in front of Yunfang. When everyone saw this scene, they were immediately stunned. What the hell is this? The tailed white ape said subconsciously. It looks a bit like a cute version of the sun. Hibika added. Sun. 8 million Bailang paused for a moment, and then said, this won't be his pet, right? Quote. Pets. Yes, he also brought a very cute pet last time, and this time it is so cute. Riri Mikako said with a smile. But the crux of the matter isn't this. Midoriya Izuku's face gradually lowered, and he blinked his eyes. As soon as Midoriya Izuku's words fell, dozens of pairs of eyes fell on him. Midoriya Izuku was a little surprised to see this scene, but he continued. Now, but it's the time of the game, I think, that cute pet may be a weapon. Hearing Midoritani's words, everyone turned their attention to the arena. In fact, the words that Midoriya Izuku reasoned about are meaningful. After all, in the game, Yunfang will simply call his pet to sell Mo. The answer, obviously, is that Yunfang will not do this. The host, are you going to burn this place? Emperor Yan asked softly towards Yunfang. Yunfang replied without the slightest hesitation, it's not. As for what to do, I'll tell you later what your cute look is like now. Quote. I know, master. As soon as Emperor Yan's voice fell, it immediately turned into a raging flame. At this moment, everyone present was undoubtedly shocked. 8 Million Bai suddenly stood up, and said with a very strange face, eyes with fire, it's him. Quote. Some uninformed wonders. What is him? What's going on? Quote. Do you remember the USJ incident where the flame that flattened the hill and had eyes? 8 Million said in shock. You mean, that's also caused by Yunfang? It's really right by Midoriya-kun, this is indeed a weapon. Is this also Yunfang's personality? 8 Million Bai shook her head. She thought she had some understanding of Yunfang, but now, her so-called understanding may be less than 1 in 100. Seeing this scene, Bakugao Shungji frowned, and his fists clenched tightly. Aizawa-kun, what's going on with you as a student? Quote. Brescent Mac's face began to condense sweat, and he twisted his neck stiffly, and asked Aizawa Yuta on the side. Not to mention that Brescent Mac is confused, and Aizawa Muda at this moment is also a question mark on his face. This, I don't know. Quote. Brescent Mac sneered and ridiculed. Aizawa-kun, you don't want to sell Guanzi, you explain it to me, and I can explain it to the audience. Quote. Aizawa frowned and guessed. This is probably also a kind of his personality, maybe like Bang Jiao, he has 2 of his own. Quote. Brescent Mac pondered for a moment, then completely convinced. The next moment, he shouted into the microphone. Everyone is frightened by this flame with eyes, but this is also one of the personality abilities of Hero Kamelo Yunfang. Listening to Brescent Mac's words, the doubts in the audience's hearts were also solidified. Like Andwa's son. Yes, it's an eye-opener. I'm looking forward to it. Which of them can win this battle? Quote. Not only in the venue, but also watching the live broadcast on the TV at the moment, they were also very shocked. Outside the field, the dense forest of patrol work stared at the big screen. God, Mr. Kamui, it seems that he is really right for you. He is the same as Andwa's son. In a personality, there are these 2 abilities. Quote. This strange personality, So far, I haven't seen anything like it. Dense forest, Shinwei said with a solemn expression. Otherwise, let's be lazy and watch them play. The mountain woman smiled slightly. Nope, although the game is very good, it is also important that we work. The dense forest, Shinwei said slowly. It seems that Mr. Kamui is really a dedicated hero. The mountain woman pouted and said. I mean, you have watched so many scenes before, this time change me, you go to work, I am a little lazy. Quote. Mountain woman. Seeing the flames with eyes, Boon Zhao was also very surprised, and after staying for a while, he couldn't help but ask. Is that all you have? Quote. I don't know. Yunfang grinned. What do you mean? Boon Zhao was stunned, and dozens of thoughts suddenly flashed in his mind. It's not interesting to talk too much nonsense, let's continue to complete the next game. Yunfang said in a deep voice. In this case, I will use all my strength, and I hope that I can also force you to use all my strength. Let me see, where is the gap between me and you? Bang scorched and frozen, and the flame burning on the left body became even greater. The win or loss of this game is already not important for Bang Zhao, he just wants to see how much gap between his strength and Yunfang is. With a flick of his hand, a blue-white light was released on his hand, and a huge ice thorn rushed directly towards Yunfang. The big trees on the way were all pierced by ice thorns. Emperor Yan grinned, and a flame directly spat out from his mouth. The flames collided directly with the ice thorns, and the next moment, the ice thorns began to melt, but the flames had not been extinguished, and continued to fly towards the scorched frieze. Drink! Boom Frost shouted, and his left hand also released a large flame. The next moment, the two flames collided together, and suddenly, a powerful air flow was formed. The surrounding temperature gradually increased, and some large trees that were relatively close burned directly. Boon Zhao frowned and muttered, I can't imagine that this strange thing can still fight. Quote. Boom. The two flames finally produced a loud bang, and a hole was blown up directly in the middle of the ring by the aftermath. And the cement under the hole glowed dark red. Boom Scorched was taken a few steps back by the storm. Master, it's okay if I kill him. Emperor Yan leaked an expectant expression towards Yunfang. He's not an enemy, we're just fighting. Yunfang glanced at Emperor Yan. Don't look at his cute appearance before. Once he switched to battle mode, he opened his mouth and closed his mouth. Master, is it good to kill them all? Master, is it good to burn them to ashes? All right, Emperor Yan nodded. At this moment, Boom Frost once again rushed towards the cloud wind. Immediately, he jumped and slapped his right hand into the ground. Boom! On the ground, thousands of icicles rose at the same time, and in an instant, the glass roof above the stadium flew up. Immediately after, in the next second, the crumbs of glass rumbled and fell towards the ground. Danger! Fortunately, there are professional heroes sitting in the audience, otherwise it will inevitably affect some innocent people. Don't panic, we're here, it'll be fine. The masked professional heroine calmed the crowd. Although the masked woman said so, some viewers still stepped back. The psychology of the audience is, standing so close, who knows what will happen in the next second. In case, if you are unlucky and something flies over, it will not be good. Is this year's first grade so fierce? The orc professional hero said in shock. Yes, what even you can't accomplish, a first-year student can complete it. The masked female professional hero said with disdain. Of course, the orc professional hero also knew what she meant, and did not answer the call, leaking an embarrassed smile. Not good. If it continues, it is estimated that this stadium will be demolished by these two guys. If it is not done well, it will also affect the audience. Aizawa said with a frown. Brescent Mac smiled slightly. Aizawa-kun, don't panic, there are still many professional heroes out there. Quote. Aizawa looked at him speechlessly, and then said in a deep voice, I hope it is as you said. Quote. The move that had just scorched the cold ice, Yunfang did not retreat in one step, because Emperor Yan blocked in front of him and drilled a hole in the cold ice. With enough fitness, next, I need to test a move. Emperor Yan retreat, Yunfang said calmly. In the next second, thousands of tree roots directly flew the cold ice top, and immediately after, thousands of tree roots fused together. In the blink of an eye, a huge wooden arhat was formed. In fact, this is exactly the move between the 1,000-hand pillars in the Hokage, called the art of the wooden man. In the original work of Hokage, a huge wooden arhat is created using the huge wooden chakra, which is powerful. Senjutsu Pillar used this technique to fight with the nine-tailed and complete body Susanoo, who was manipulated by Madara, and caught Susanoo, who was enough to split the mountain peak with his bare hands, and caught the small-tailed beast Jade, which is one of Mudu's strongest ninjutsu. Now that I have come here, there will be some changes, such as this thing of chakra, which is replaced by physical energy here. The audience, the professional heroes, all the students saw this scene, and their jaws dropped all the time. What is this wooden giant? Quote, I'm Sao, since his personality has been developed to such a point. Is he really a student? This strength is estimated to be better than many professional heroes. Quote, he's the devil. Envy, the so-called genius, refers to the kind of cloud wind. This kid really surprises me every time he duels. Aizawa said in a deep voice. Aiz-kun, is this student of yours a monster? Bress and Mac asked from the sidelines. It is no longer correct to describe him as a monster, it must be described as a devil. Aizawa replied. Or, you can explain. Bress and McDowell. Don't. Then I pulled it casually. Whatever. Saying that, Bress and Mac just shouted into the microphone. Classmate Merlot Yunfang directly opened a big move, summoned a giant. Can the scorched classmate resist? At this moment, at the back of the audience, Andwa crossed his hands on his chest, looking very strange. At this moment, another man slowly approached Andeva. Andeva, found it, the man said softly. Andwa looked at him with interest and said, how? Quote, the child you are talking about named Merlot Yunfang, his parents are not professional heroes, just ordinary people. The man replied. Ordinary people? Are you kidding me? I suspect he's Olmet's illegitimate son. Andwa said with a frown. Really, I'm not kidding you, his parents are just ordinary people. The man explained. But Andwa absolutely did not believe what the man said. It's impossible, the genes inherited by ordinary people are so likely to be so powerful. By the way, you help me think about who is the wooden family among the professional heroes. Andwa said. The freshman has a name called Dense Forest Shinwei. Mo Fei, he is the illegitimate son of Dense Forest Shinwei. Andwa muttered. The man retorted. Mr. Andwa, this is impossible. Dense Forest Shinwei is a professional hero of the younger generation, at most in his 20s, but the one named Merlot Yunfang is at least 17 years old. Quote. Andeva didn't continue to talk back, looking at the arena. Yunfang jumped on the giant's forehead. This time, Yunfang's physical strength was sufficient, and there was no hot steam emitting on his body. Seeing this wooden giant standing in front of him, Boom Jiaojia subconsciously took 2 steps back. What is it again? Is it really as Bress and Max said, this is Yunfang's big move? Boom Jiaojia muttered. The next moment, a smile leaked from the corner of his mouth. In that case, I will use all the strength I said to defeat it. Boom, boom. The wooden giant directly shattered all the ice thorns in front of him. Stepping on a heavy step, it is close to the scorch. Boom Jiao stretched out his left hand, and directly a huge flame directly hit the giant. However, the next moment, Emperor Yan directly absorbed it on the side. This weird guy, since he still has this ability. Boom Frost muttered, and then, he stopped using the flame attack and turned to ice. Using cold ice, Emperor Yan did not strike again, and Yunfang controlled the giant, constantly hitting the oncoming cold ice. Bang, bang, bang. Some of the broken ice was directly hit by the cloud wind into the audience, and screams began to sound in the audience. Many professional heroes couldn't sit still, and they all stood up and blocked the large ice cubes flying towards the stadium. Drink. The scorched ice continued to release cold ice, and the right side of his body, a thin layer of ice, covered it at a speed that could be seen with his right eye. The next moment, he also drove the flame on the left to the limit, and the cold ice on the right body quickly melted. On the cloud wind side, it is controlling the continuous bombardment of this wooden giant, while slowly approaching the scorching freeze. Ah! The wooden giant directly bombarded down with a punch, and where the fist passed, the ice shattered. Seeing that it was not good, Boom Frost quickly dodged. Boom! A big horn in the ring was directly beaten into powder by the wooden giant. Seeing this scene, Bang Jiao frowned. This giant is not illusory, if he punches him, it is estimated that I will lie down. Quote. The flame attack will be absorbed by that guy again. At this moment, Boom Scorched Frozen is really in a dilemma. The cold ice is no match for his Mew Duan, and the fire personality is the only Cloud Wind that has a chance to defeat. However, beside him, something appeared that was much stronger than his own. It's not over yet, the next good show will appear. Yunfeng sneered. What? Was stunned, and he was immediately stunned. All he could think of was that this giant was not his last move. Yunfeng clasped his hands together, condensed his physical energy, and the next moment, the entire ring began to vibrate. The game is over, Bress and Mac shouted. Everyone was stunned and looked at the big screen suspiciously. Bress and Mac explained. I just received a notice from the headmaster that the duel between the first grade Cloud Wind and the Scorched Frost is over. Quote. Termination. Why? An audience member said suspiciously. Don't you see that if the two of them continue to fight like this, it is estimated that the entire stadium will be trampled by the two of them? Another explains. That's right, the school must have considered this problem. If the game is not terminated, maybe we spectators will be affected. However, speaking of which, the hero department of the first grade this year is really powerful. With such a powerful junior, we can rest assured that when they become professional heroes, I believe that the chance of crime will definitely decrease. The game is over again. Yunfeng muttered. Phew. Boom Zhao breathed a sigh of relief, although he really wanted to see what Yunfeng said about the good show had just begun. But he didn't want to joke with his life. Dear audience, I'm really sorry, the school has decided that there are two champions of this year's first grade, and they are Merlot Yunfeng and Boom Frost. Is that the end of it? Yunfeng blinked his eyes slightly unwilling. Whether or not the game is terminated, Yunfeng, I lost both. Boom said softly. As he spoke, he moved forward slightly and walked in front of a huge ice thorn. Reaching over, the next moment, a stream of hot steam suddenly appeared, and the ice thorn gradually turned into nothing at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. After a few seconds, only a pool of hot water proved the existence of the ice. In that case, there is no way. Yunfeng jumped and fell to the ground. Then he spoke. Solution. Quote, the wooden giant, as well as any wooden things released by the surrounding clouds and winds, turned into green points of light in the blink of an eye and disappeared from everyone's sight. I didn't win either, because I haven't knocked you down yet. Next time, let's find a place when we have time, have a good discussion, and don't worry about anyone around. Yunfeng smiled slightly. I hope that day comes, and in between, I will work harder to become stronger. Boom said calmly. In the audience, there was once again warm applause. All the competitions are over here, and Xiangying has won the double championship for the first time in history. As soon as Bress and Mac's words fell, countless fireworks flew into the sky, banging and blooming. The entire schedule of the first year of this year's Xiangying Sports Festival has ended, so the next step is to hold an award ceremony. As he spoke, behind midnight, a podium slowly rose from the ground. Standing on the first position, the Cloud Wind has been scorched, the second is to win the heroic victory, and the third is to always step on the clouds. Many students cast an envious look at them. Actually, in addition to Chong Dark-kun, the third place is Iida-kun, but he left early because something happened at home. Midnight ordered. Next, enter the medal awarding process, and the person responsible for awarding the medals this year is, of course, the same person. Reaching for the top of the stadium at midnight, Olmec crossed his hands at his waist and laughed. Seeing this scene, Yunfeng couldn't help frowning, although it was said that he was the first hero, but if he was not nervous. It is estimated to be perfect. Olmec's appearance, undoubtedly, the entire audience began to boil with enthusiasm. Midnight brought the medal in his hand to Olmec, and said softly, then Olmec, start awarding medals from the third place. Quote, you've passed the prize. Often secretly tread the dark and humble way. Olmec smiled slightly, stepped forward and hugged Chong Dark, while patting him on the shoulder and said, if you want to avoid being restrained, you can't rely too much on personality. Quote, if you can further strengthen your basic strength, there should be more opportunities, so keep up the good work. As he spoke, Olmec picked up the medal again and walked towards the second place. Congratulations, Bakugao boy, there is no doubt that your strength is also very strong. Saying that, he presented the medal to Bakugao Katsuki, and by the way, he came with a hug. Next is the first place. Olmec walked in front of the cloud wind and the scorched freeze. Holding 2 medals in his hand, he buckled Yunfang and the 2 of them. Congratulations to the 2 of you, your strength naturally goes without saying, and it will definitely be like me in the future, a symbol of peace. Yunfang and Boom Frost nodded. Olmec just wanted to hug Yunfang, but Yunfang subconsciously took a step back and said with a smile, just hug. Quote. Ha ha ha, Olmec laughed, and then continued, okay. Quote. Saying that, Olmec turned his head and shouted at the audience, well, this time the top 3 are them, but everyone, all the students present, actually have the possibility of standing on the podium. Quote. As everyone can see in the competition, the courageous posture of competing with each other, improving each other, and constantly climbing to higher realms. The next generation of heroes has undoubtedly emerged, so at the end, I want to say, please join me in the arms and chant. Ready. All the audience members also followed the rhythm of Olmec and shouted, everyone has worked hard. Quote. Today's sports festival ended like this, although it is not perfect, but it still draws an end. After the award ceremony, some spectators began to slowly leave the venue, while some school staff came to restore the venue. Yunfeng had just walked out of the lounge and wanted to go back to the classroom, but the moment he opened the door, he was stunned, and there were people standing outside the door. As soon as he saw the cloud wind come out, a large group of professional heroes rushed towards him like a tide. Little brother, I see that you have good qualifications, do you want to come and be my assistant? One of the professional heroes asked. Of course, Yunfeng at this moment did not know at all, and the school had a training program next. Professional heroes hire people as assistants for a week. Classmate, come to my sister's place. I have a good treatment here. The masked female professional hero squeezed in front and said with a slight smile. Come to me, I can help you become stronger. No, come to me, it's your best choice. Hey, no, why do you keep raising the bar with me? I'm telling the truth. What a bar. Quote. Yunfeng frowned, and the next moment, he said in a deep voice, you guys are blocking my way, can you let me go? Quote. The professional hero smiled awkwardly, and then quickly made way for Yunfeng. Now, they don't want to be blacklisted by Yunfeng now. Classmate, think about it, we will issue an application. Yunfeng stopped talking, quickened his pace and turned back to the classroom. It's getting dusk. Aizawa walked too slowly to the podium, still looking godless. He first glanced at the whole class, and the next moment, he said, everyone has worked hard, so the school will be closed for the next 2 days. Quote. The professional heroes who watched the sports festival are estimated to issue recruitment applications in these 2 days. These schools will take care of sorting it out and announce it after the holidays are over. Quote. Yunfeng, who heard this, frowned slightly. He finally knew that there would be a large group of people looking for him. The 2-day holiday was not fast, slow, and on this day, Yunfeng came to Shangying High School as usual. Class 1A. Is it really different to have a TV broadcast? On the way to school, a lot of people talked to me. A female classmate said cheerfully. Me too, me too. Another student replied. 8 million Bai turned around and said towards Yunfeng. The golden ball that had eyes and could fly yesterday was changed by your personality. Quote. Yunfeng was stunned for a moment, and nodded the next moment. What the hell is your personality? 8 million asked curiously. You guess. Hearing Yunfeng say these two, 8 million hundred already knew that there was no drama to know the truth. At this moment, Aizawa opened the door and walked slowly to the podium. Everyone early. Teacher early. Today, I want to talk about heroic intelligence, the content is more special. Aizawa said calmly. All the students froze for a moment, thinking that something had happened again. Think about codenames, that is, the hero name. Quote. When Aizawa finished saying this, basically everyone began to boil, and only Yunfeng was indifferent. Because, he didn't know what was worth so excited about. In fact, this is also related to the professional hero recruitment application you mentioned before. This recruitment application, wait for you to accumulate experience. It won't take effect until it's recognized as a combat power after 2 to 3 years, which means that this recruitment application to your first grade is closer to the personal interest of professional heroes in your future prospects. Once this interest wanes before you graduate, it is common to unilaterally cancel the application. Aizawa said too slowly. In other words, receiving an application directly becomes pressure on us, right? A classmate asked. Aizawa nodded and replied, that's right. Quote, saying that, he took out a remote control from under the podium, pressed it, and the next moment, on the blackboard, a form appeared. This is the application result calculated by the school. Aizawa said. Undoubtedly, the number one was Yunfang, which received 6,680 applications. The second was Scorched, with 4,128 applications received. The third is the Explosion of the Heroic Victory, 3,556 applications. The whole class couldn't help but be taken aback when they saw this statistical chart. Wow, it's so powerful, it's worthy of being the first in our class. Quote, up to more than 6,000 applications, so envious. Bomb classmates, too, more than 4,000 copies. I don't have one. Alas. Quote, the first grade of this class is very good, breaking several records of the first grade of heroes. Aizawa said calmly. 8 Million Bai turned his head and said towards Yunfang, it is worthy of being Yunfang's classmate, more than 6,000 copies, a little scary. But do you have a favorite whereabouts? Quote, faced with the 8,000,000 questions, Yunfang pondered for a few seconds, then spoke, actually, I don't want to go anywhere, might as well give me a holiday. Quote, 8 Million Bai was slightly shocked. After all, this is what many people dream of going, but Yunfang did say that it was better to give him a holiday. What is this guy thinking in his head day by day? 8 Million thought secretly in his heart. It's a great opportunity to exercise, do you want to waste it like this? 8 Million asked curiously. A good opportunity to exercise. Yunfang glanced at 8 Million speechlessly, and then spoke, you think too beautifully, to put it bluntly, it is to work. Quote, working is also exercising yourself. 8 Million explained. That, if you say so, come to my house and exercise. And the salary to take, do you want to try? Yunfang said calmly. 8 Million Bai glanced at Yunfang and said, what do you say, my training is right. Quote, mine too, Yunfang said seriously. Forget it, I won't talk to you. 8 Million blushed slightly, not to mention, she really wanted to answer, go to Yunfang's house to exercise and exercise. Envy Yunfang, since there are more than 6,000 applications. If I can give it to you. Yunfang grinned. But it's useless to let us go. Yes, the result is that whether you receive an application or not, you have to go to the so-called workplace experience. Aizawa said calmly. Workplace experience, a question mark face for the class. It is true that you experience the actual battle with the enemy before the others, but the school wants you to experience the content of the professional hero event firsthand. And get a more fulfilling workout. Aizawa was too slow to count. Is that why you have a hero name? Aizawa nodded. Well, that's pretty much what it means, although the name of the hero who goes now can only be regarded as temporary, but if someone dares to take it casually. Aizawa's words were not finished, and with a click, the person arrived first before the sound arrived. I'll show him what hell is. The next moment, Midnight walked with enchanting steps to Aizawa's side. After all, there are many heroic names that people take when they were students, and they will be recognized by the world and directly become professional heroes. Midnight said calmly. Aizawa nodded on the side, and then spoke, well, that's it. As for the taste of naming, there is a Midnight teacher to evaluate, and I am completely fine in this regard. Quote. With that, he took out his yellow sleeping bag, walked in, then zipped up, lay on the ground, and began to sleep. Hero name. Yunfang looked at the ceiling and began to ponder. Here you go. 8 Million turned around and handed a white panel towards Yunfang. Yunfang took it, put it on the table, and soon had a name. The next moment, he grabbed the pen and wrote the words Merlot on the white panel. The word Merlot actually has no meaning, it is simply Yunfang's own surname. Merlot, you're too casual. 8 Million complained. Yunfang was stunned for a moment, and then retorted. Where do you see casual? 8 Million Bai explained. You yourself use your last name as a hero's name, isn't that casual enough? Quote. Yunfang glanced at her speechlessly, and asked curiously, what about yours? Quote. 8 Million Bai smiled slightly, and said seriously, the hero of all things, the daughter of creation, I swear that I will never let this name be disgraced. Quote. Poof. Yunfeng quickly covered his mouth to prevent laughter. This kind of strange, and the name of the second in the middle, Yunfeng didn't know how she came up with it. Seeing Yunfeng snickering, the face of the 8,000,000 changed, and he just said that he would not swear that he would never let this name be shamed. As a result, within seconds, I felt that I had put the name to shame. You're laughing, seriously, 8,000,000 pouted. Yunfeng quickly shook his head, withdrew his smile, and said seriously, no, I'm joking. Quote. However, in less than a few seconds, he recalled what he had answered, and suddenly couldn't help but laugh again. 8,000,000 directly reached out and twisted on Yunfeng's arm, and said with a reasonable look, you dare to make fun of your squad leader to get a name. Quote. I don't. Look at you, now you can't close your mouth with a smile. I'm not smiling. Yunfeng quickly withdrew his smile, but seeing 8,000,000 such an expression, one couldn't help but laugh again. HMPH. 8,000,000 turned around directly, ignoring Yunfeng. This guy, it's really, me off, phew. 8,000,000 muttered. Yunfeng laughed behind for a while before he stopped smiling. Later, it was time for everyone to submit their hero names, so that Yunfeng did not guess. Since 8,000,000 did not use the daughter of creation, he became a hero of all things, 8,000,000. After everyone decided on the hero's name, Aizawa ran out of the sleeping bag again. Well, since everyone has decided on the hero's name, let's go back to the topic of workplace experience. For a week, as for the key workplace locations, I will send them to the students who receive the application later. You choose among them. Quote. As for those who have not received applications, the school has entrusted 40 offices across the country to accept you in advance, so you will choose one of them. After Aizawa's instructions, he left class, told them to make a decision within 2 days, and then he left with midnight. Yunfeng looked at the report in his hand and had all kinds of offices, and his brain hurt when he saw it. Seriously, he knows all this stuff at all. Confused for a day. Just as Yunfeng came out to the school gate, suddenly a figure came out. Junior, have you received our application? The mountain lady asked cheerfully. As soon as her words fell, behind her, another voice followed. Don't scare him, dense forest Shenwei instructed. It's you, Yunfeng said calmly. Aha, the mountain woman quickly nodded her head, and then continued, how about it, do you want to consider coming to us? Quote. Yunfeng pondered for a moment, and then asked, what about you, what do you think? Quote. Of course, it's very good, not only can you exercise yourself, but also very fun. The mountain woman explained. It's fun. Yunfeng's eyes blinked, and the next moment, his face changed greatly. Okay, I decided, go to you. Quote. The mountain woman was ecstatic and said with a smile, okay, we are waiting for you. Quote. Yunfeng nodded. If there is nothing else, I will leave first. Quote. Aha. Watching Yunfeng's voice gradually disappear from his sight, dense forest Shenwei spoke, yes. I thought it was a little difficult, but I didn't expect that you solved it as soon as you opened your mouth. Quote. The mountain woman smiled lightly. It's really not difficult. Yunfeng is different from the geniuses who only know training, and in his eyes, fun seems to be better. Quote. It should be. Now that the matter has been settled, it is time for me to go back to work. Dense forest Shenwei said. Yunfeng returned home, and his mother had cooked a whole bunch of delicious food. Mom, you don't have to bother so much. Yunfeng slowly put down his bag and walked out of the room. Silly son, what are you talking nonsense? You have won the first place with this hard work, this is rewarded to you by your mother. I know, but you've been rewarding me for a few days, you don't want to reward me from today because I got a first. Yunfeng explained. Her mother seemed to have thought of something and muttered, yes, if that's the case, you won't be going all out next time. Leave it to your dad to eat, and when you get the first place next time, mom is making food for you. Yunfeng. 2 days later, a certain station. 1A Bantong carried a duffel bag on his hand, as well as a combat uniform. Everyone, bring your combat uniforms. Aizawa asked. Everyone nodded. Originally, you were not allowed to wear combat uniforms in public, but this time is an exception, don't lose it. Quote. With that, the students in classes 1A began to walk in the direction they were going. At this time, Boon Zhao walked in front of Yunfeng and said softly, "When this special training is over, I want to fight with you alone." How? Quote. Boon Zhao turned his head suspiciously and glanced at Bakugao, but then directly ignored it. Chao Yunfeng continued, "I'm waiting for you." Quote. "You half-idiot, believe it or not, I killed you." Bakugao Shengji saw that Boon Zhao ignored him, and suddenly his green muscles erected. "You're here to challenge too?" Yunfeng asked towards Bakugao Shengji. Bakugao Shengji quickly looked at Yunfeng and said in a deep voice, "That's right, it's the same as half of his face." Quote. Yunfeng smiled slightly, "Okay, I accept your challenge." Quote. Bakugao Shengji ignored Yunfeng, put his combat clothes on his shoulders, and left. On the other side of the station, Minoru Minda put his finger into his mouth, his face was slightly red. At this moment, next to him, a voice sounded. "Minoru Minda, which professional hero you applied for?" Midoriya Izuku on the side asked softly. A trace of an evil smile suddenly leaked from Minetta's face, and he said softly, "Mountain Woman." Quote. "Mountain Woman. Your expression won't be thinking of something bad." Midoriya Izuku leaked a look of disgust. "Phew. Aha." Minoru Minda nodded. The next moment, he scanned around, and when he submitted his application, the Mountain Woman happened to be in Shangying High School at that time. The Mountain Woman wanted to pick up the Cloud Wind, so she asked Minetta to wait at the station by the way. The words of the Mountain Woman made Mikita very happy. Soon after, a woman with blonde hair and a horn ornament on her head appeared in the station. And Minda she saw the Mountain Woman at a glance, and happily accelerated his pace and ran towards the direction of the Mountain Woman. "Sorry, I encountered a little thing halfway, so I delayed a little time." The next moment, he quickly turned his head and found Yunfeng behind him, but his intuition told him how could Yunfeng choose the Mountain Woman so powerful. "I'm the one who submitted my application not long ago," Minetta said with slight disappointment. "I know, but I've been too busy lately to forget your name." The Mountain Woman chuckled. "My name is Minoru Minda." "Oh, okay, I remembered. You wait here, I have something to tell the junior brother later." Saying that, the mountain lady's figure flashed, walked to Yunfeng's side, and said with a smile, "I'm sorry to keep you waiting for a long time." Quote. Minoru Mineta, who was behind, saw this scene, and his face was slightly exaggerated. "My dreams were shattered. Why did Yunfeng also choose the Mountain Woman?" Minoru Minda said with a dead fish face. Originally, Mineta was still thinking that this time was a very good opportunity to enjoy exclusively. "But I never expected that Yunfeng would also choose the Mountain Woman." Minoru Minda turned his stiff body and saw the Mountain Woman talking and laughing. Suddenly, his face became even more gloomy. "I'm sorry, junior brother, I encountered something halfway through and was delayed." The mountain lady smiled slightly and explained to Yunfeng. "It's okay, I just came here," Yunfeng said calmly. "Didn't you take your combat uniform?" The mountain woman looked at Yunfeng only carrying a school bag, and couldn't help but ask curiously. Yunfeng shook his head and explained, "The combat suit is of no use to me. So, it doesn't matter if you feel it or not." Quote. Combat uniforms are useless. Hearing this, the mountain lady looked at Yunfeng suspiciously. In the memory of Mountain Woman, no matter what your personality is, the combat uniform is tailored to your personality specifications. Of course, there are many uses, such as strength boost, defense, etc. However, Yunfeng actually said that the combat uniform was useless as soon as he opened his mouth. "Isn't your combat uniform tailored to yourself?" the mountain woman asked. "I think you will know more or less about my personality, and the combat uniform is of no use to me at all," Yunfeng said slowly. The mountain lady pondered for a while, and then said, "Indeed, your personality is too strong, even if you use a combat suit, it is useless." Quote. Just as the mountain woman's voice fell, the mobile phone in her pocket tinkled and rang. She took out her phone and began answering. "Kamui-san, what's wrong?" Quote. When a deep voice came from the other side of the phone, the face of the mountain woman changed greatly. "I see." With that, she hurriedly hung up her phone. "What's wrong?" Yunfeng asked curiously. "Mr. Kamui has encountered something. Yunfeng, come with me," the mountain woman said softly. Yunfang nodded. At this time, Minoru Minda also came over and said softly, I go too. Quote. The mountain woman froze for a moment, looked at Minoru Minda, and said, no, we are going to fight. With your strength, it won't help if you go. Quote. War, fight. Quote. As soon as Mikita heard these two words, his face suddenly became gloomy. What did he just say? It's all about looking for death. Yes, I can't help much. Minoru Minda quickly replied, afraid that if he answered a little slower, the mountain woman would change her mind. You go back to the office first. The mountain lady instructed, and then quickly said towards Yunfang, follow me. Quote. With that, the mountain woman began to run wildly, and Yunfang quickly followed behind. Inside the road where there were few people, the body of the mountain woman instantly became larger. Continue to say towards Yunfang. Quick, Yunfang jumps up. Quote. Yunfang snorted, then jumped on the shoulders of the mountain woman. Hold tight, the mountain woman ordered, and then began to run quickly. On the other side, dense forest Kamui and the hero killer Stein are in a duel. Heroes, but only those who have accomplished great deeds deserve the title, and there are too many money worshippers who consider themselves heroes. I will never wave my hand until this society itself discovers the fallacy. Stein said in a deep voice. The next moment, he waved the knife in his hand and increased his speed. That's so high-sounding, dense forest Shinwei said in a deep voice while fighting back. Haha, Stein laughed loudly, and then said coldly, in my eyes, you are the so-called corrupt hero, so your life must stay here. Quote. After speaking, I saw Stein's long sword flash coldly, and suddenly, with a bang, a hole was cracked on the arm of the dense forest Shinwei. Blood was on top of his sharp blade. Dense forest Shinwei hurriedly took a few steps back and distanced himself from Stein. Stein sneered, slowly raised his sword, and the next moment, he directly licked the blood on the blade. The dense forest Shinwei suddenly felt that his body could not move. The body can't move, is this the personality of this guy, careless? Dense forest Shinwei frowned. Stein waved the long sword in his hand, pointed at the dense forest divine power, and said in a deep voice, goodbye, you tribute to the right society. Quote. Dense forest Shinwei looked at Stein, who was approaching step by step, and forced his saliva to swallow. At this moment, there was a slight vibration on the ground. Stein was stunned for a moment, and looked around. At this moment, the mountain woman with the cloud wind is rushing towards Stein's side. However, the next moment, the mountain woman suddenly stopped, her brows furrowed. What's wrong? Yunfang saw that the mountain woman suddenly stopped her pace and asked curiously. Further ahead, it's beyond my limits, after all, I need a street twice as big as me to function. The mountain lady whispered. Yunfang was suddenly speechless, stood up from the shoulders of the mountain woman, and said softly, now fight with the enemy, who is it? Quote. Just Kamui-san, but the closest is us, and other professional heroes should be on their way. Quote. The mountain woman said calmly. Okay, you throw me towards the black smoke. Yunfang said. Please, Yunfang, the mountain woman said, and gently grabbed the cloud wind on her shoulder. Immediately towards the place of black smoke, he threw it hard. Of course, Stein also knew that the mountain woman was coming, but Stein had a good understanding of these professional heroes. Because he knew that he was fighting with dense forest Shinwei in an alley, the moment he saw the mountain woman, he did not panic at all. Instead, he continued to lean towards the dense forest divine power. The blade flashed coldly, directly penetrating the abdomen of the dense forest divine power. Poof! A large mouthful of bright red blood spat out directly from the mouth of the dense forest Shinwei. Hero, your career is over. Stein laughed. At this moment, the cloud wind fell from the sky, swung his fist behind Stein, and punched over. Stein heard the movement, clicked, and suddenly spikes appeared on the shoes on his feet. As soon as he turned around, he kicked towards Yunfang's fist. The impact of spikes and fists, with a pop sound, Stein suddenly flew upside down and hit the wall directly. A click. The wall is torn apart, giving the impression that the wall could collapse at any time. When Yunfang saw the sword stuck in dense forest Shinwei's chest, he couldn't help but frown. It seems that it is still a step late. Stein quickly got up from the ground, and as he got up, he scanned the spikes under his feet, the place where they had been hit, the spikes had been beaten crooked. This couldn't help but shock Stein's heart. He looked up and looked towards the clouds. This uniform, you are a student of Shangying High School, Stein said with shock in his heart. The reason why he was shocked was because just now he thought that some powerful professional hero had come. However, what he never expected was that it was a heroic student. Yunfang ignored him, walked to the side of the dense forest Shenwei, grabbed his shoulders, and jumped onto the roof with a quick jump. Stein thought that Yunfang was going to escape, and sneered, "Just leave like this, it's too much to give me face." Quote. Saying that, Stein also jumped and chased after Yunfang's back. Yunfang's right arm turned into a huge wooden grasp, grabbed the dense forest divine power, and threw it in the direction of the mountain woman. And just when Yunfang turned his head, the sword light and shadow flashed in his eyes, and the next moment, a long sword pressed against his chest. Stein looked at the cloud wind and leaked a shocked smile. Snap! At this moment, Yunfang had not yet returned to his original wooden grasp, and grabbed the oncoming long sword. The next moment, with a direct click, the long sword was directly crushed by Yunfang. Stein looked at this scene in front of him and immediately frowned. At this moment, Yunfang greeted with a punch. Stein quickly dodged backwards. Boom! The roof was instantly pierced by the cloud wind through a hole. What's the origin of this kid? Wearing the uniform of Shangying High School, but the power far exceeds that of the students. Stein frowned. He didn't know how many pounds Shangying's group of students had, because he never cared. However, today's appearance of Yunfang made his eyes shine, but Stein also had some concerns, and he suspected that Yunfang was not a student of Shangying at all. It's just wearing the uniform of Shangying High School. You're a hero killer, aren't you? Yunfang asked calmly. Stein sneered and asked, "You guy is a professional hero." Quote. Professional heroes? No, buddy, you think too highly of me, I'm just a classmate. Yunfang said with a slight smile. Students, are you and me a fool? Students can have such strength, I tell you, how many new generations of professional heroes Shangying are now beaten by me. Quote. That includes the wooden man you just rescued. Stein said disdainfully. If you say this, should I clap my hands and shout 666 by the way? Yunfang said calmly. 666. Stein froze for a moment, looked at Yunfang suspiciously and said, "Listen to your tone, are you mocking me?" Quote. Yunfang smiled coldly and did not give an answer. Stein snorted coldly. Let's start with you self-righteous money worshippers, I will never wave my hand until society itself discovers the fallacy. Quote. Saying that, Stein picked up his long sword underground and pointed it at Yunfang with a swing. The next moment, he glared backwards with his feet, and with the help of external forces, he quickly rushed towards Yunfang. Yunfang stretched out his right hand unhurriedly, followed closely, his right hand began to stretch, and at the same time it began to fork, and in the blink of an eye, it became dozens of wooden thorns 14. Stabbed towards Stein. Stein froze for a moment and muttered, what is the personality? Quote. At the same time, he kept waving the long sword in his hand and slashed at the dozen or so oncoming wooden thorns. Whoops! The chopped wooden thorns were constantly reborn and faster than before, which forced Stein to speed up. What the hell is this? Can't you finish chopping? Stein's face continued to condense sweat. Moisture. At this moment, Stein's longsword suddenly cracked, he just noticed it, but the next moment, with a direct click, the longsword broke. The wooden thorn stabbed towards him, and he began to desperately flash along the walls everywhere. Bang bang. With 3 or 2 strokes of effort, the surrounding buildings were poked hundreds of holes by the wooden thorns of Yunfang. Do you only have the ability to dodge? Yunfang said calmly. I only know that the winner is the king and the loser is the curse. Stein retorted while dodging. Oh, yes, Yunfang smiled coldly, and then returned his right arm to its original appearance. Stein stood firmly on the roof, and before he could catch his breath, suddenly after he was covered, a fist directly gave him a blow in the back. He instantly rushed towards Yunfang's side, and the next moment, Yunfang flew up with an arrow and gave him another heavy kick. Boom! He hit the wall hard, and instantly spat out a large mouthful of bright red blood on his mouth. Who is it? Stein got up from the ground a little embarrassed, and in the time he had been kicked off twice. He glanced up at the roof, and the next moment, suddenly his pupils contracted violently. What the hell is going on here? Why are there two identical people? Quote, are they twins? Stein said in surprise. In fact, just now, when Yunfeng jumped on the roof and sent the dense forest divine power to the mountain woman, he had already created two wooden doppelgangers. The wooden avatar is better than the shadow avatar in the world of the Hokage, and in the world of the Hokage, the so-called true and false wooden doppelganger is not distinguished. In the world of My Hero Academia, the effect is even better, and basically no one can recognize it. The wooden doppelganger standing on the roof jumped up, and hundreds of sharp wooden thorns split out of his hands. Like a sharp arrow, it is a stab directly towards the ground. Whoops! Stein kept dodging and counter-attacking, but there were so many of them that he simply couldn't dodge them all, nor could he fight back all. Poof, poof. Quote, after 5 to 6 seconds, several wooden thorns had penetrated his arm, freezing him in place. What the hell is this thing? Is it not a twin, but a personality made of that identical one? But, impossible, isn't his personality this rotten wood? Stein frowned, and the next moment, he gulped, clicked, and in his upper hand, a sharp iron thorn appeared. He raised his other good arm and slammed it directly on the wooden thorn, breaking it, and then took the other arm out. After pulling out the wooden thorn that ran through his arm, he suddenly felt a stream of heat spread across his arm. Immediately after, his clothes were dyed red. Drip, drip. Blood continued to fall to the ground. Stein cursed, and he put all his energy into the cloud wind in front of him, and the wooden doppelganger cloud wind on the roof. But at this moment, he suddenly felt that he was attacked behind his back, and once again rushed towards Yunfeng. And Yunfeng is also the same old, directly an arrow step to meet the face, another kick him away. Bang! He hit the wall again, this time worse than the last two. Poof! Once again, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood on the face was mixed with sweat. He stood up shakily, his gaze cast to the spot where he had just stood. This time, his eyes were open, and the corners of his mouth began to tremble. And, another identical one. To hell with it, isn't it? Stein began to panic. Chapter 65. Ah! At this moment, the wooden doppelganger Yunfeng standing on the roof also fell to the ground. The two wooden doppelgangers Yunfeng and the genuine Yunfeng stood together, and the three walked in front of Stein and stared at him. Ahem! Stein coughed a few times from a distance, and his arm began to numb with pain. Moreover, he now felt that his vision began to blur a little. He leaned against the wall, stood up with difficulty, and said in a low voice, triplets, or is it a trait of your personality? Quote. Stein looked at the three clouds with a fierce face, and the corners of his mouth twitched. It's over, now you don't have any ability to resist at all. Yunfeng squeezed out a smile and said. The next moment, he directly took out a small knife at his waist with his unharmed hand and stabbed directly towards the wooden doppelganger on the side. With such a short distance, the chances of escaping are very slim. But just when his knife stabbed into the abdomen of the wooden avatar Yunfeng, there was a sudden bang, and the wooden avatar Yunfeng turned into a white mist. This blow frightened Stein and himself. He hesitated for a while, and Yunfeng directly pressed his neck and slammed him to the ground. Isn't it a surprise? Yunfeng said coldly. At the same time, the last wooden doppelganger Yunfeng also followed with a bang, and turned into a white mist. What the hell is going on here? Tricks. But it's impossible, I obviously received his real attack. Stein roared in confusion. Because, this guy, no matter how much he was hurt, he still didn't have the slightest fear of Yunfeng in his heart. Perhaps, he doesn't care about life and death at all. This guy. Yunfeng raised his eyebrows. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Stein burst out laughing, full of sadness. You'd better kill me now, as long as I don't die, even anywhere, until this society discovers the fallacy, I will never stop. Stein said in a deep voice. You mean, you're going to kill all the professional heroes? Cloud Wind. Heroes. Are they heroes? Heroes, but only those who have accomplished great deeds deserve the title. Quote. Now they are basically money worshippers who regard themselves as heroes, only Olmec, and Olmec is really worthy of the title of hero. Yunfeng pondered for a while, and the hand that grabbed Stein's neck slowly loosened. I'll give you a chance and let me see what you're going to do. Yunfeng said in a deep voice. Stein was immediately confused by Yunfang's words, turned his head with difficulty, and looked at Yunfang. When Yunfang knew that there was no fear in his heart, he felt uninteresting. He was going to hand it over to the police, but after hearing his words, he changed his mind. He wanted to see how Stein made society aware of the fallacy. You don't need to know this, you should think about how to escape from here now, although I said that I let you go, and the others may not be there at that time. Yunfang said slowly. It took a lot of effort for Stein to get up from the ground, and when he got up, his first thing he saw was the cloud wind. The next moment, he limped against the wall and began to slowly leave. Remember, it's best not to disappoint me, I'm very interested in this thing you said. Yunfang instructed. Stein listened to the pace, paused for a few seconds, he did not speak, and the next moment, he continued to walk forward. It seems that the other professional heroes have arrived. Yunfang muttered. The next moment, sure enough, a large group of people rushed over the street, but, under Zhao, for a second, suddenly a loud voice sounded. Over here, I see someone. Immediately after, a large group of professional heroes ran back. When they saw the clouds and winds, all the professional heroes froze for a moment. Wearing the uniform of Shangying High School, it seems that it really is. Chase the hero killer. After everyone heard Yunfang's words, they were immediately stunned, and the next moment, one of the male professional heroes spoke. I have seen your performance at the sports festival, and your strength is very strong, but even so, you can't mess around. That's right. Another professional hero walked up to Yunfang, patted him on the shoulder, and added, charge. Chasing heroes and killers is a very dangerous thing, not to mention that you are still just a student. Hurry back. Leave the rest to the older brothers and sisters. Professional Ying Shang said calmly. Yunfang smiled slightly, and now he also had this plan. As for whether Stein can escape here, he is also indifferent, for him, Stein is dispensable. Finally, Yunfang slowly walked out of the alley, and at this time, the mountain woman was no longer that place. It is estimated that he saw that the injuries suffered by dense forest Shenwei were very serious, and he was taken to the hospital as soon as possible. This guy, I'm a student, isn't he worried about me? Yunfang grumbled. After complaining, Yunfang returned the same way according to his own route. Ding ding. After walking for a while, Yunfang's mobile phone rang. He took out his phone and found that it was an unfamiliar number. After pondering for a few seconds, Yunfang finally connected. Yunfang just wanted to ask who it was, but a worried voice quickly came from the other side. Hey, is it senior brother Yunfang? I'm Mountain Woman, are you okay? Don't bam, I've already arrived with a bunch of professional heroes. The Mountain Woman said breathlessly. Obviously, he was now rushing towards Yunfang. I'm okay, Yunfang said calmly. Well, it's okay, don't be afraid, senior sister will come and save you right away. Mountain Lady rode. The hero killer has run away, I am safe now and on my way back. Yunfang replied softly. Tread. At this moment, Yunfang felt a sound of footsteps from the side. He turned his head and saw that the mountain woman was coming over. And behind her are many other professional heroes. Soon, the mountain woman also noticed Yunfang, put the mobile phone back in her trouser pocket, and ran in front of Yunfang. Other professional heroes rushed towards the black smoke over there. Yunfang, let senior sister see if there is anywhere. The mountain lady wandered around Yunfang several times. After confirming that she was not injured, she breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't fight the enemy, and after I rescued dense forest Kamui, he didn't chase me, but left. Yunfang explained. I'm sorry, senior sister did something very wrong. The mountain woman said in a low voice towards Yunfang. You mean you left first with the dense forest Shenwei? Yunfang asked curiously. The mountain lady nodded. At that time, the situation was urgent. Mr. Shenwei's blood did not stop, it didn't last long. When I watched the sports festival competition, I knew that you had some strength. Quote. So I was thinking that you could hold out for a while, so the brain fever left with Mr. Kamui. As a professional hero, I have already made a very serious mistake, and it is estimated that Mr. Kamui will blame me when he wakes up. However, fortunately, the junior brother was not injured, otherwise the senior sister would have felt guilty for the rest of her life. For the series of apologies of the mountain woman, Yunfeng pondered for a while, and the next moment, he continued, sorry is useless. Or, senior sister, you can do something practical. Quote. When the mountain woman heard Yunfeng's words, she was slightly puzzled and said, what is practical? Quote. As reparation, the best thing is certainly not to say sorry. Yunfeng said seriously. What's that? Of course it's action, this week to experience the life of a professional hero. Don't want, you greet me for a week, this matter will pass like this, senior sister, you see, how is it? Quote. You little one, what's going on in your head? Of course not, I have to do my duty as a teacher, you don't have to think of any crooked ideas. Quote. The mountain woman crossed her hands, put them on her chest, and snorted coldly. On the other side, Stein was walking hard, holding on to the wall and walking tenaciously towards the front. But behind him, a large pool of blood, which became the deadliest problem. It won't be long before the professional heroes will catch up along the blood. His vision was getting blurrier, and it wouldn't be long before he fainted. But at this moment, in front of Stein, a vortex suddenly appeared. The next moment, the black mist appeared in front of him. Stein saw the black fog in front of him, subconsciously stopped his steps, and stared at the black fog with his eyes. By the time Stein reacted again, he had arrived at a bar-like room. Who are you? Stein said with a solemn face. The dead-handled wooden hanger chuckled. Enemy alliance. Quote. Okay, don't talk about some useless things, what are you doing here? Stein said weakly. Of course it's for you to join us. Black Mist added again. Join you. Although Stein's body felt numb, at this moment, he still squeezed out a smile. Well, please, wicked senior. Dead-handle wooden hanging path. What is your purpose? Stein continued to ask. While speaking, the dead-handled wooden crane took out a stack of photos, and the first photo on the photo was Yunfeng's. And this stinky imp, all of them are also destroyed. The dead-handled wooden crane added. This imp is, after Stein saw the photo of Yunfeng, he couldn't help but be stunned. The dead-handled wooden crane saw Stein's shocked look, thinking that he had taken the wrong photo, and turned it over and looked at it twice. After finding that there was no mistake, the dead-handle Muhong's face changed greatly and said in a deep voice, this little ghost is from the hero department of Shangying High School, named Merlot Yunfeng, this guy is as nasty as Olmet. Quote. Merlot Cloud Wind. Sure enough, a student Tanyan frowned and said to the dead-handle wooden hanger, it's that I am too superficial to be interested in you. Quote. You, it's the type of person I hate the most. Quote. Ah, the dead-handled wooden hanger and the black fog fluted for a moment. What is the point of asking me to accompany you children who do not have the killing intent of faith? Stein said with a sneer. If you have to say it, right, it should be Olmet. I really want to crush this shit society that even his kind of garbage will hold to the sky. Quote. When Stein heard this, he was immediately stunned, and said in a deep voice, is this what you think? It seems that your purpose seems to be completely opposite to mine. Quote. However, we are still consistent in destroying the current society. The dead-handled wooden crane just wanted to say something, but at this moment, Stein suddenly leaned back, and finally lay heavily on the ground. Fainted. Teacher, what are we going to do next? The dead-handled wooden hanger turned back and also greeted the screen. Don't be in a hurry, wait for Stein's injury to recover a little, we are planning the next move, what to do. Screen Dao. Merlot Yunfeng, this kid I must make him worse than Olmet. The dead-handled wooden hoister said in voices. This kid you mentioned, I'm very interested in him, perhaps, I can try it, brainwash him, and see if he can be used for me. The other side of the screen said softly. For us, listening to the sound coming from the screen, the dead-handle wooden hanger was stunned for a moment. That's right, if we can bring him to our side, our strength will definitely increase a lot. Teacher, that's right, but it seems that this matter is more difficult than expected. Black Mist added. In fact, it is not as difficult as you think, because they are now in a rebellious stage, let him be influenced by a little society, it is easy to let his path go crooked. The dead-handled wooden hanging, as well as the black fog, were suddenly stunned. The question is, how do you expose him to a little social influence? The dead-handled wooden crane slowly stood up and sat down in the seat closer to the screen. Haven't you all been aware that since the opening of Shangying High School, Merlot Yunfeng has caused a lot of trouble? The use of personality in public places, the killing of so-called criminals, and the dense forest Shinwei incident, large-scale destruction of buildings. According to normal procedures, I am afraid that he is already in prison now, but why has he not been affected until now? After listening to the sound coming from the screen, the dead-handled wooden crane in the black fog began to fall silent. In the world of My Hero Academia, with the continuous advancement of personality regulation, only the government is governed. The government has approved that personality can be used in public. If individuality is used privately, it is considered an extremely serious crime. If you follow the normal process, Yunfeng is no longer free. The teacher means that someone behind Merlot Yunfeng helped him, so he was not punished. Black Mist reasoned. A voice came from the screen again. That's right. Otherwise, that child would not have been free. Quote, to help him in this way, the right should be great. It is Olmet, or is it someone else? The dead-handled wooden hanger muttered. As for who it is, I don't know, but I know that there are definitely people who have done a lot for him in the back. So, teacher, what are we going to do next? Black Mist asked. I naturally have this law. Wait for you to do as I say. I can guarantee that even in a few days, even Olmet will not be able to help him. Ha 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 ha. An exaggerated laugh came from the screen. As long as we get him, our combat power will inevitably increase greatly, and then many things will be smooth. Black Mist said calmly. On the other side, the mountain woman had something to do, and after bringing Yunfeng back to the office, she left in a hurry. Now there are only 2 people left in the office, Yunfeng and Minoru Minda. You just went to fight the enemy. Minoru Minda, who was sitting on the sofa on the other side of Yunfeng, said. There is no one, and when we go, the enemy has already run. Yun calmly replied. Minda nodded, and after a while, he continued to ask, Yunfeng, obviously your strength is so strong, and the number of applications to you has reached more than 6,000. Quote, much stronger firms than Mountain Woman are bigger. Why do you have to choose the Mountain Woman? Quote, personal preference. Yunfeng replied, personal preference. Minoru Mineta's eyes suddenly flickered, and he jumped up from the sofa and walked to the side of Yunfeng. Looking at Yunfeng with a strange look, he said, could it be that Yunfeng-san is just like me? Halfway through the words, Minoru Minda cast a look you know about Yunfeng. Yunfeng glanced at him speechlessly, and then retorted, don't misunderstand, I'm not the same as you at all. The reason why I came here was because the mountain woman said that she was fun here, so I came over. Quote, ah, Mineta was slightly disappointed. He thought that he had found the same person, but, obviously, he thought too much. It's boring to stay here, I'm going to hang out. Yunfeng stood up and walked towards the door. Mineta, she instructed later. Didn't the mountain lady tell us not to go out until she came back? Quote, stupid people will obediently listen to her. After Yunfeng dropped a word, he walked out. When passing through a certain alley, suddenly, a scream reached Yunfeng's ears, although the sound was very low, but Yunfeng could hear it clearly. Yunfeng suddenly stopped and looked towards the alley when he heard the sound. Squeaky, squeaky. The squeak is lower than that scream. After hesitating for a moment, Yunfeng slightly quickened his pace and walked in. When I came to a corner, I found a bloody man lying on the ground. His body was cut by a knife countless times, and the blood was red and the corner of the wall was already underground. Okay, Zhao. Whoever is so crazy, forget about killing, the technique is still so terrible. Yunfeng muttered. Yunfeng looked at the blood stains on the ground and followed step by step, and after walking for a while, he saw a woman wearing long yellow sleeves and a short black skirt. He was jumping on the side and walking towards the front. The knife in his hand was still throwing, and the blood from the tip of the knife fell low to the ground, on the wall. The squeaky words kept repeating in his mouth. A familiar influence flashed through Yunfeng's mind. It's the girl who was in the forest last time. Yunfeng said with a slight shock. Yes, I was overwhelmed by the sound that seemed to be heard, and subconsciously turned my head at the moment I saw the cloud wind. Her pupils suddenly contracted violently, flicked the knife hand, no longer flicked, her mouth had been saying squeaking, and she didn't say it now. A coolness spread from head to foot, and then from foot back to head. She first leaked a stiff smile towards Yunfeng, and the next moment, the smile gradually disappeared, and at the same time, she had already straightened her head. Immediately after, without saying a word, he took a step forward and started running wildly. Stop, if you run again, I'll kill you. Although I heard the words, she felt that the chance of being killed if she didn't run was greater. I saw Yunfeng chasing after him with a step, and after 3 or 2 strokes, he had already run in front of the body that crossed me. I was stunned by the body, feeling cold behind her. Her eyes widened and looked at the cloud wind, and the next moment, involuntarily swallowed saliva. Didn't you stop it? Yunfeng said calmly. I suddenly remembered that I still had one important thing to do, so I had the opportunity to see you again. I was told by my body, turned around again, and wanted to run. But at this moment, a wooden wall suddenly burst out of the ground, blocking her way. Your very important thing is to kill? Yunfeng asked. I was turned around, quickly shook my head, and said, no, no. Quote, however, you were really crazy. Even if you kill people, you have to open so many holes in others, making other people's flesh and blood blurred. Yunfeng said in a deep voice. What Yunfeng said is the truth, so there is nothing to refute now. What are you going to do? Bech Wataru asked in a deep voice. Pass the time. Yunfeng didn't want to answer directly. I was frowned by the body, and the boss with his eyes wide looked at Yunfeng. For his answer, I was also speechless. To pass the time, you will pass the time elsewhere. What is it all about running to me? After the last battle in the forest, now I am a little shadowed by the cloud wind, because the difference in strength is too big, and seeing the cloud wind is like seeing the god of death. Happy to let you go, unhappy to divide you. But then again, you are very bold, you have no personality. People, look at your techniques, this is not the first one. Cloud wind channel. I nodded slowly and whispered, are you going to take me to the police station? Quote, if there is interest, I can. Yunfeng replied. I was speechless and looked at Yunfeng. Hearing Yunfeng say this, I was slightly relieved by my body. At least, she felt that Yunfeng would not send her to the police station. Ding ding. At this time, Yunfeng's mobile phone suddenly rang, and he subconsciously took out his mobile phone. It was the mountain woman who called. Hey, Yunfeng subconsciously greeted. You smelly boy, I just left for a while. Where did you run again? Hurry up and give me back. The mountain lady shouted. It's so stuffy inside, I came out to breathe. Yunfeng said unhurriedly. Come on, you kid, you must have gone out to cause trouble again. Hurry back, I have something important to tell you. The mountain woman said anxiously. Something important. Yunfeng froze for a moment, and then continued. Important things still have to be said. You just say it clearly on the phone. Quote, no, the phone says it's not safe. Yunfeng was speechless and said perfunctorily, okay, I'll go back immediately. Quote, saying that, Yunfeng hung up the phone, put the phone back in his pocket, and then glanced at the body in front of him. I was subconsciously taken a step back, leaned my back against the wooden wall, and watched the cloud wind vigilantly. Forget it, I originally wanted to play with you more and consume a little time, but now I have more important things to do. Yunfeng said calmly. The next moment, he jumped and quickly left directly from the roof. Phew, she thought she was going to be killed, but she was also optimistic. After Yunfeng left, she instantly changed back to her original appearance, and threw the knife in her hand. Jumping towards the front, with a smile on his face, he said, squeak. The mountain woman sat on the sofa at this time, frowning. I originally wanted that kid from Yunfeng to come over and be my assistant, but now it's good, but I will be his assistant. But it's okay, there is Minoru Minda. Mineta blinked his eyes and said to the mountain woman, of course I am a good child. It will definitely not make the mountain woman angry. Quote, okay, clean this hall. Mountain lady rode. With that, Mineta quickly grabbed his tools and started working. It didn't take long for Yunfeng to push the door in. Seeing Yunfeng's appearance, the mountain woman sighed and said softly, however, I really have something to tell you. Quote, you say, Cloud Wind Channel. During these 7 days, in public, do not use personality, do not fight with the enemy. As for today, I have been deducted a month's salary. The mountain woman's tone was slightly angry. Try it, Yunfeng said calmly. Junior, I don't care about my salary that month. I told you to do this for your own good, Jung. The government strictly stipulates that those who do not have a hero license cannot use their personality in public. Quote, This is not that Yunfang is pretending to be stupid, but he really doesn't know. He listened to what the mountain woman said, he has completely been hit, and he killed when he first came. Why is there still nothing going on at all? Yunfang nodded and listened intently. From the beginning of Shangying High School to now, you have violated a lot of the laws of this country. According to normal procedures, you are definitely not free. Quote. However, the reason why you are now is because Olmit has helped you a lot in the back, so you let us save some money. Listening to the words of the mountain woman, Yunfang's face began to become solemn. Olmit really gave a lot for you as a student, and deceived almost the entire country, just to let you go to school normally and become a hero. What if what I did was known by the people of this country? Yunfang asked. It took a long time for the mountain woman to say a sentence from her mouth. Then, even Olmit will not be able to save you, and you will lose your freedom. Quote. Hearing this, Yunfang suddenly felt that this country was a little absurd. I finally know why the enemy is so bold, and even self-preservation accidentally kills the enemy is punished. However, the words of the mountain woman also remind Yunfang that if you want to survive in this world, you must have strength to resist. Yunfang couldn't help laughing at this moment. Yunfang, are you okay? The mountain woman asked. Yunfang's reaction caught the mountain woman a little off guard. She originally thought that it would take at least a long time to talk about Pain Cloud Wind, but she didn't expect that since it made sense in 3 words. Don't worry, senior sister, I really understand. Yunfang said calmly. Okay then, you're all tired today, just go and take a break, and work tomorrow. I have prepared a room for you, just the first room on the 2nd floor, and the 2nd room. The mountain woman instructed. The 2 rooms were randomly selected, and when he entered, Yunfang locked the door. He sat cross-kneeled on the bed and began to further cultivate the immortal mode, and now his chances were still 4 minutes to enter. The blink of an eye of a week's workplace experience came to the last day, and in these 6 days, Yunfang basically practiced the immortal mode all the time. After these days of hard work, he finally shortened the time to enter immortal mode to just 3 to 4 seconds. 3 to 4 time, for Yunfang, is already very satisfactory. Phew, Yunfang breathed a sigh of relief, then got out of bed and looked at the time. It was already past 12 noon. Compared with Minoru Mineta, Yunfang is lucky, and all the housework here can be regarded as all covered by Minoru Mineta. Every afternoon, Yunfang and Minoru Mineta followed the mountain woman to experience professional life in the workplace. Bang bang. At this moment, the door of the room where Yunfang lived rang. Who? Yunfang subconsciously asked. It's me, Mikita Minoru. What's wrong? 347, Mountain Lady said. Today's last day of workplace experience, call is to set off now. Mineta reported. I see, Yunfang replied, then changed into a sportswear and went out. At this time, Minoru Mineta and the mountain woman had long been waiting outside. Today is the last day of your 2 workplace experience. The target is Baoshu City, the trip is a little far, let's take the car. The mountain woman explained. What's the workplace experience today? Yunfang asked curiously. Meet a friend, and treat you to dinner. The mountain woman said with a wink. Have a big meal with the mountain woman. When Mineta heard this, he immediately began to think about it. The saliva flowed to the corners of his mouth, and Minoru Mineta quickly reached out and wiped it. All right, Yunfang calmly replied. He quickly was completely deceived, and he said that it was fun here, but it turned out, fun fart. All day long, I followed her blindly, visiting supermarkets, Yunfang and Mineta carrying bags. However, fortunately, the most pitiful is Minoru Mineta, and Yunfang basically did nothing. Yunfang and they sat in the car for about half an hour, and then came to Baosu City, and stopped in front of an office. Then, Yunfang and Minoru Mineta followed behind the mountain woman and slowly walked in. Soon, he meets the mountain woman with a strangely dressed man wearing a hat like his tail on his head. He saw the arrival of the mountain woman and said with a smile, Quote. The mountain lady nodded. The one behind you must be Merlot Yunfang. The man set his gaze behind the mountain woman. You know me, Yunfang said slightly puzzled. Of course, the powerful master of the sports festival, in the face of Andeva's son, still has the upper hand, and what I remember most is you. The man praised. You two sit here for a while, I'll talk to him about something. The mountain woman instructed. Yunfang nodded and sat down on a bench against the wall. They chatted inside for about 10 minutes or so, and suddenly they quickly ran out of it. And he looked very flustered. You two do well here, remember not to run around, especially you. Cloud Wind. Quote. The mountain woman gave a word, and did not come to listen to Yunfang's answer, so she quickly ran out with the man. Hair, something happened. Minoru Minda looked at the back of the mountain woman and asked suspiciously. Looking at his appearance, what else can happen? It is estimated that there is another place that was attacked by the enemy. Yunfang said slowly. The enemy. Quote. When Mikita heard the words enemy, he immediately shivered and forced his saliva to swallow. How can I be so unlucky? This kind of thing can also happen. Minoru Minda complained. What's the panic? It's not you going to the battlefield. Yunfang complained. That's true, but since the last USJ incident, I have only heard the word enemy with a shadow. Minoru Minda said with a solemn face. Yunfang glanced at him speechlessly, and continued to complain. I'm curious, aren't you going to be a hero in the future? I see this virtue in the air. Quote. After all, I was just a junior high school student with not long ago. Minoru Minda retorted. It makes me look like I'm not the same. Cloud Wind Channel. You are different, your personality is so powerful, and mine, this personality is basically useless. Minoru Minda complained. At this time, on the right wall, something suddenly hit, and a large opening suddenly opened in the wall. This scene made Minoru Minda on the side of Yunfang scream in fright. With this loud noise, Yunfang's eyes suddenly looked towards the broken wall. The next moment, a mutant with brain pulp leaking directly walked in. And this kind is exactly the brain nothing that happened in the USJ incident. Brain. Minoru Minda was so frightened that he quickly hid behind Yunfang, and then continued. Cloud, Yunfang, what to do? It seems that the people in this office followed the mountain woman and they went out. Quote. What else can you do? At this time, in addition to relying on yourself, who else do you want to count on? Compared with Minoru Mineta, Yunfang did not panic at all, but was a little calm and a little scary. I can't, it's up to you. Mineta said in a wistful manner. I can't protect you, you run quickly. Yunfang said calmly. Can you do it alone? Minoru Minda asked. If I can't do it alone, plus you can't do it. Tianchi hesitated for a moment and said, I'll go for help, you hold on. Quote. After saying that, without waiting for Yunfang to reply, Minoru Mineta quickly ran out. And Yunfang looked at Brain Wu expressionlessly, and after a few seconds, a red stripe appeared at the corner of Yunfang's eyes. Obviously, he has entered immortal mode. Sure enough, it is much more convenient to encounter this situation. Yunfang said and rushed forward directly. Bang, bang, bang. The speed of the brain was simply the speed of Yunfang, and in just a few seconds, Yunfang struck 40 or 50 punches in his abdomen. At the time of the last punch, Brain Wu directly flew out from the hole he had just entered. Boom! The brain fell heavily inside a wall outside. However, in the next second, the brain crawled up from the ground again, and it was undamaged. It's the same brain as the last time, they all have the ability to absorb shocks. Yunfang looked at Brain Wu and muttered. After the brain got up from the ground, he rushed towards the Cloud Wind again. This is a bit tricky, if the impact is not, it will not give him a fatal blow. Yunfang reasoned. Brain Wu didn't think so much for Yunfang, and punched Yunfang. Yunfang quickly dodged as if he was full of movements. Then he kicked over and hit hard. Snap! Brain Wu flew out upside down again. But in the next second, Brain Wu climbed up directly from the ground and pounced on Yunfang again. Yunfang hurriedly took a few steps back, and then slapped it on the ground with one hand, and the next moment, bang! Dozens of tree roots poured out directly from the ground, and the brain was entangled. Brain Wu desperately began to struggle, but no matter how much he struggled, he could not break free of the entanglement of the roots. Seeing that you look quite similar to the previous one, but neither attack nor agility is comparable to the previous one. Yunfang approached Brain Wu step by step. Listen to Olmut say, you seem to be an artificial human, completely obedient to the guy who has a lot of hands on his body. Just as Yunfang finished saying this, he suddenly seemed to think of something, and the whole person was touched. Wait, android. Quote. Yun Feng suddenly realized and continued, artificial people don't have independent souls. You can only do exactly what the Creator commands. Quote, if I inject soul into him, will it be of use to me? Yun Feng boldly guessed. The next moment, he decided to try. Anyway, he now has countless souls in his body. Immediately afterward, he pulled out a white object from his body, and then he injected it into the body of Brain Wu. Then, Brain Wushan closed his eyes, and when he opened them, there was no change. Yun Feng thought that he had failed, and at this moment, Brain Wu suddenly spoke. Did you give me life? Brain Wu asked. Yun Feng said with a slight shock. That's right, I let you have life, and I am your master. Quote, master, the brain said subconsciously. No, 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 you still don't call me master, save unnecessary misunderstandings. Yun Feng said calmly. Indeed, if the brain does not shout Yun Feng as the master, after being heard by others, maybe these brains have something to do with Yun Feng. Then what do I call you? Master, Brain Wu asked. Don't call anything. Do you remember who made you? Yun Feng asked. It's you, master, Brain Wu Dao said. Don't call me master. Yun Feng was speechless. Yes, Lord O Wrong, Brain said thoughtlessly. Yun Feng glanced at him helplessly, and the next moment, he escaped from his mobile phone, and from the USJ incident above, he found the photo of the dead-handled wooden hanger and handed it to Brain Wushan. It's this guy, you killed him in the past. Cloud Wind Channel. Obey. After listening to Yun Feng's order, without a word, he left here with a kick. Boom, boom. Around Yun Feng, the sound of explosions continued to sound, and Yun Feng subconsciously looked over. Not far from his side, thick black smoke slowly rose and filled the sky. It seems that not only here has been attacked, but other places are the same. Yun Feng muttered as he looked at the thick black smoke, and the next moment, he jumped and rushed in the direction of the black smoke. After a while, he arrived at the place of black smoke, and at this moment, on the road, several professional heroes were dealing with two brain nothing. And there are already several dying professional heroes lying on the ground. It seems that these two brains are more than enough to deal with this group of professional heroes. Yun Feng said in a deep voice not far away. Extinguish the fire! Extinguish the fire! A professional hero kept yelling. These professional heroes have already gained the upper hand against Brain Wu, and now they have to fight the fire while dealing with Brain Wu, and the winning rate is even lower. Bang! A professional hero with two horns on his head fought with Brain Wu. Although the two are about the same size, the horned professional hero has no way to do anything. Just when Yun Feng just wanted to turn around and leave, suddenly directly, a professional heroine wearing a green and white tights blocked in front of Yun Feng. Hey, don't get in the way, this is not the place for you to stay, hurry up and retreat. The female professional hero yelled. Yun Feng smiled slightly. Originally he wanted to leave, but now he changed his attention. He first turned around and walked a few steps, and while they were not paying attention, Yun Feng jumped onto the balcony on the third floor. Followed, sitting on the fence, half lying and watching them fight. Although professional heroes have 6 and only 2 brains, even so, they can't eat it, and these brains have the ability to absorb and release. Not an opponent at all. The female professional hero frowned. As soon as his voice fell, one of them whined a few times, and the next moment, he directly rushed towards the female professional hero. Leave quickly, the bullhorn professional hero on the other side shouted at her. But, it was too late, and she couldn't escape. She subconsciously stretched out her hands and blocked in front of her, and the next moment, Brain's fists hit her hands directly. Snap of a sound, the female professional hero suddenly flew upside down, and then fell heavily on the wall. Poof, a large mouthful of blood involuntarily spat out of her mouth. Are you all right? The horned hero rushed towards her. The female professional hero gritted her teeth and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, you can't die." Quote. Saying that, she staggered to her feet from the ground and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Woohoo! Brain Wu screamed wildly again, and the next moment ran in the direction of the female professional hero. The female professional hero quickly dodged, although the attack was not as good as the brain, but the agility was still slightly better. Yun Feng lay on it like this and watched for about 5 minutes. Woo! At this moment, in midair, a winged brain appeared without appearing. After hearing the movement, the professional heroes on the ground quickly raised their heads, and the next moment, they were terrified. No, no way. Quote, these two are already overwhelmed, and now there is another one. The flying brain Wu turned around in midair a few times, followed closely, aimed the target of the attack at Yunfang, and directly rushed towards him. Everyone subconsciously looked in the direction where the flying brain did not fly, and when they saw Yunfang lying on the balcony, they were suddenly startled. Not good, there's a guy there. What's going on? Shouldn't everyone here evacuate? At this distance, there is no rescue. The flying brain does not have such a behavior. For Yunfang, he is simply dying. After entering the immortal mode, he looked at this brain flying in the sky like slow motion. You go play with these professional heroes, Yunfang said calmly. Saying that, he turned into a black shadow and stood up directly, and when his brain flew over, he directly kicked him towards the ground. Call. The flying brain quickly landed on the ground, and with a boom, a big hole was smashed in the ground. The professional heroes on the ground were completely stunned when they saw this scene. What just happened? He kicked the monster down. Quote, is he a professional hero too? This face is the young man just now. The female professional hero muttered incredulously. Their eyes were full of shock. He didn't know if it was this flying brain that was vulnerable, or if the man in front of him was really powerful. What a daze, the enemy pounced. When the voice of one of the professional heroes fell, he pulled them out of their contemplation. Click, click, the flying brain staggered up from the big pit, shook its head, followed closely, and pounced towards the female professional hero. He opened his huge mouth, leaking fangs, and saliva fell to the ground with his teeth. The female professional hero looked at the flying brain Wu, and then her right arm turned into a beast arm by itself, becoming huge. She stepped forward, waved the huge fist in her hand, and slammed it towards the head of the flying brain. But at this moment, the flying brain quickly waved its wings, creating a super powerful air flow. Woohoo! The female professional heroine was instantly blown back several steps by the strong wind, and finally, she grabbed the building with her huge right arm so that she could barely hold on. It's not close at all, the female professional hero complained. And her companion was no better, beaten by the other two brains. Snap! The last hero who fought against those two brainless slammed directly into the wall, and the hot blood on his head covered his entire face. Now, only that female professional hero remains. In the end, I was the only one left. The female professional hero frowned and said. The remaining two brains also aimed at this female professional heroine, and walked towards her one after another. Obviously, the chance of them winning was 0%, but now, it has reached a negative number. That is, certain death. Sure enough, before 10 seconds had arrived, the female professional hero first had a few punches with her brain, and the first few punches of the female professional hero could barely hold on. However, in the back, the three brains did not go up at the same time, and the 3 or 2 kung fu directly knocked the female professional hero to the ground. The next moment, the two flightless brains turned around again and began to destroy other things. When Yunfang saw this scene, his face did not have any expression, and the next moment, he turned around and prepared to go back to the office. But right at this moment, with the woohoo, a few sounds sounded, and the flying brain directly rushed towards the cloud wind. Yunfang said coldly, "Didn't you say, tell you to play with them, don't bother me?" Quote. Saying that, the cloud wind directly turned into a black shadow, and the next moment, only a boom was heard. The entire building collapsed, and thick smoke filled the surroundings. And in the thick smoke, Yunfang stepped on the head of the flying brain, and the flying brain was constantly struggling and wanted to get out, but Yunfang's feet were like thousands of caddies. Completely imprisoned him to the ground. A big body doesn't necessarily mean you win, Yunfang said in a deep voice, followed closely, and waved his fist. Immediately followed by a heel bucket jumped, and at this moment, the flying brain quickly got up and flew away with its wings. However, then Yunfang fell in midair, and with all the strength of his body, he directly punched his head. Snap! The flying brainless head was directly burst, and the impact directly caused a huge pit on the ground. Snap! The flying brain was not half cut off, and the body fell in the big pit. Dita! The cloud wind landed smoothly on the ground. It's not a natural force, the power of the fist is far greater than before. Yun Feng secretly rejoiced in his heart. He was not sure how powerful his fist was before, but now at this moment, it was finally confirmed. And the remaining 2 brains who were destroying the building, after hearing the movement, also rushed towards the cloud wind. Exactly, I can try it. Yunfeng chuckled, clenched the fist in his hand, and turned into a black shadow. Ran towards the 2 brains. Boom! Yunfeng directly punched him in the abdomen, followed by one of the brains instantly flying backwards. After running through 3 to 4 buildings in a row, it stopped. It seems that the 2 brains in front of me have the ability to shock absorption. And that flying brain is no. Quote. Through that punch just now, Yunfeng discovered a lot of things. The other one also rushed towards the cloud wind, but the next second, several vines directly popped out of the ground, entangled his feet. Leave him immobile. Okay, now it's time to get down to business. Yunfeng withdrew his soul from his body and injected it into Brain Wu's body. After Yunfeng explained, he took out his mobile phone and said to Brain Wu, see that this person is not, find him, and then kill him. After receiving the order, Brain Wu turned around and began to evacuate. And this scene happened to be seen by the female professional hero lying on the ground, but because she was too badly injured, she couldn't say anything. After Yunfeng finished dealing with this brain nothing, he turned around and went back in the direction of the office. On a tall tower somewhere, Black Mist asked towards the dead-handled wooden hanger, aren't you going to war? Quote. The dead-handled wooden crane turned his head slightly, and said in a deep voice, are you stupid? You haven't healed from being injured by that kid last time. That's why I brought them here. Quote. Listening to the explanation of the dead-handled wooden hang, Black Mist nodded. Suddenly, at this 350 moment, Black Mist suddenly spoke, what's the matter? There are 1 mines below who are attacking people. Quote. As soon as the voice of the Black Mist fell, the dead-handled wooden hanger suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked down. Sure enough, the brain could not pass in front of the professional hero, and when he was attacked by the professional hero, he did not fight back, but just blindly walked forward. On the lips, the target is not him. Quote. What's going on? Isn't the teacher's mind tested before? It should be usable. The dead-handled wooden hanging said with a confused look. It seems that something is wrong now. Black Mist added. Black Mist, follow me down to see what's going on. Dead-handled wooden hanger said in a deep voice. Black Mist nodded, followed by opening the portal on his body, and the next moment, he brought the dead-handled wooden hanging to the front of Brain Wu. When Brain Wu saw the dead-handled wooden hanging, he immediately listened to it and said in a deep voice, the target appears, kill. Quote. Listening to Brain Wu's words, the dead-handled wooden hanging and the Black Mist were shocked. What the hell is going on here? Brain Wu can actually speak. The dead-handled wooden crane said in shock. Could it be, this one mutated? Black Mist reasoned. Mutant, the dead-handled wooden crane said calmly. Brain Wu kicked his legs backwards and rushed directly towards the dead-handled wooden crane. No, he attacked us. The Black Mist quickly struck, and then opened the portal, and transmitted the fist of the wooden hanger to other places. What the hell is going on here? Quote. The dead-handled wooden hanger began to breathe rapidly, subconsciously reaching out to scratch his neck, and suddenly in a few seconds, his neck was already red. Let's retreat first, this kind of thing will be decided by asking the teacher back. The Black Mist was silent. The dead-handled wooden hanger pondered for a moment and nodded. The next moment, Black Mist made a portal behind it. The dead-handled wooden crane slowly walked in, but Brain Wu also followed suit. Black Mist was stunned for a moment, and quickly followed back. A hotel. The dead-handled wooden crane just returned to the hotel, and the next moment, behind him, the brain directly punched over. Bang! Of a sound, the dead-handled wooden crane hit the wall directly. Dang! Dang! Dozens of bottles of wine fell to the ground with a bang. The dead-handled wooden crane frowned and quickly stood up. Hey, you fool, what the hell is going on? The dead-handled wooden crane asked directly. Someone told me to kill you. Brain said silently. Who? Teacher? Dead-handled Muhong asked suspiciously. This is a very important thing. The host commanded no one to tell. Quote. Without saying anything, he waved his fist and ran towards the dead-handled wooden hanging. And at this time, Black Mist also returned to the hotel, and he quickly asked towards the screen. Teacher, are you there? There is nothing wrong with the brain you studied. Black Mist asked. Something went wrong. Impossible things, I've tested. The screen replied. It seems to be mutated, the brain can't speak, and it has been chasing and killing the dead-handled wooden hanging. Black Fog Road. Talking brain nothing. This is an artificial man, without personality, who only knows how to obey orders, how can he speak? The person on the screen retorted. Teacher, this is true, now this guy is still chasing me to kill. The dead-handled wooden crane also shouted towards the screen. The screen was suddenly speechless for dozens of seconds, followed by saying, Black Fog, bring him over, I really want to see how the brain woo is after the mutation. Quote. Got it, teacher. Black Mist nodded, and then said to the dead-handled wooden hanging. Trouble with the dead-handled wooden hanging, the brain has been chasing and killing you, as long as you go first, he will also follow in. Quote. With that, he opened his portal. Although the dead-handled wooden crane was not very willing, there was no other way but to rush in quickly. A moment later, the dead-handled wooden hanging appeared here in the hotel again, but the brain behind it was not following. Ha 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 ha. Seconds. A voice came from inside the screen. Teacher, what's wrong, is it mutated? Dead-handled wooden hanger asked. It's not, he should have been transformed, but I was shocked, who has this ability, since he can be transformed into a brain with personality. Quote. Retrofit, teacher, this is unlikely. I've only been released for a few hours. The dead-handled wooden hanger said in a deep voice. Yes, teacher, it takes you many days to create one on average, how can he transform it in such a short time? Black Mist guessed. In the dead-handled wooden hanging and Black Fog are not too convinced. After all, this is simply too outrageous, he firmly believes that there are no such people in this society. Don't say you don't believe it, the teacher is also quite shocked, this person is simply a genius. I have a feeling that his ability to invent is far beyond being a teacher. However, I can't figure out who has this ability, not even Olmec. Quote. The voice of the screen fell, and the dead-handled wooden crane had to be silent again. Merlot Cloud Wind. The dead-handled wooden hanger finally said these 4 words for a long time. Merlot Cloud Wind. Black Mist looked at the dead-handled wooden crane with a puzzled expression. I feel like there is no one else but him, and in the last live broadcast of the sports festival, he once used a flame that also has life. The dead-handled wooden crane said slowly. It seems that the dead-handled wooden hanging is with what I thought, ha ha ha. There was laughter from inside the screen. What the hell is the personality of this fool, it can shock us every time. Dead-handled wood hanging teeth itch. Black Mist, what happened to that plan last time? The person inside the screen asked. Almost, teacher, I'm sure in a few days we will be able to start. Black Mist explained. That's fine, don't let me down. This time the attack was quickly alleviated, capturing a brain nothing, although this brain could not speak, but he was basically silent. Soon after, the mountain woman returned to the office and saw a big hole in the office. The mountain woman then asked Yunfeng, in addition to self-preservation, you deal with this attacking brain woo, you didn't go out to deal with the others. Quote. Yunfeng shook his head. The mountain lady breathed a sigh of relief and said with a hint of a smile, let's go, senior sister, please eat a big meal. Quote. These 7 days of working life ended here, and the next morning, Yunfeng went to Shangying High School as usual. However, something that Yunfeng could not have imagined happened. At this moment, outside Shangying High School, a group of reporters were around. When the reporter saw the cloud wind, a group of reporters rushed towards the cloud wind like a tide. Hello, Merlot Yunfeng, may I ask that you killed criminals before entering school, how do you explain this? A female reporter's microphone was put to Yunfeng's mouth. Just when Yunfeng was about to answer, Olmec suddenly appeared, and he quickly pulled Yunfeng with an expressionless face and quickly walked into Shangying. A group of reporters in the back quickly chased after them and asked. Olmec, Merlot Yunfeng is your student, can you say a word? The female reporter shouted. However, the reporters were helpless, because they could not enter Shangying and could only stay at the door. It's really scary to be a student like that. A man carrying a camera couldn't help but mutter. Yes, if someone hadn't broken the news yesterday, we wouldn't have known about this student's shady scene. Why can such a ruthless person also enter the academy? Everyone, don't oversay it, after all, he was also trying to protect himself at that time. It may also be a last resort. Quote, what about the second time? It was the dense forest divine power incident in the news office, which turned all the buildings into forests and destroyed how many buildings? Some of these journalists denigrate Yunfang, and some are defending Yunfang. Olmec pulled Yunfang into the lounge. What the hell is going on here? The fog at the end of the clouds. You didn't watch the news in the early hours of the morning. For the first time, Olmec said with such an expressionless face. Yunfang looked at him and shook his head suspiciously. It's best not to look, Yunfang Jr., I believe you, I will help you solve this matter as much as possible. Olmec said in a deep voice. What the hell is going on? Yunfang asked again. Go back to the classroom first, you don't need to worry about this. Just go to school as normal, Olmec said calmly. The next moment, he turned and left. Yunfang naturally took out his mobile phone directly in the next second, opened a browser, and without him searching, there were pushed articles below. Yunfang subconsciously clicked in. The title goes like this. Hero High School Merlot Yunfang turned out to be a murderous maniac, killing people on the day of admission. Closing square bracket. Then the following are all kinds of words that reject this Yunfang. Let Yunfang roll out of Xiangying High School, and let him sit in prison for a lifetime. Can't let him endanger society. After reading this article, Yunfang saw that since the retweets had reached 1 million, the number of likes had reached tens of millions, and the comments had been millions. Yunfang then turned to the comment area, and the result was obvious, the unified slogan, Merlot Yunfang, get out of Xiangying High School. Quote, the one who asked Yunfang to get out of Xiangying High School was the only one in the review that was better. Yunfang flipped over, and when he saw the next, he almost made him vomit blood. Some directly shouted Yunfang to die, so ruthless. Some asked the police to arrest Yunfang, and they couldn't let him do whatever he wanted. Seeing these comments, Yunfang laughed so helplessly for the first time, he just killed a robber by self-preservation, and what about them? It is for a bad person to verbally attack himself. This society, it's really not saved. Yunfang sneered and put the phone in his pocket. The next moment, Yunfang stepped towards 1A, and on the way, there was no doubt that various people avoided Yunfang and cast strange eyes towards him. Yunfang frowned, but ignored it. After a while, he returned to class 1A, the only thing that was the same was that they all looked at Yunfang with strange eyes. Yunfang ignored it and sat back in his place directly. After a long time, 8 million Bai finally turned around and asked softly. Yunfang, did you really kill someone? In the face of the inquiry of 8 million hundreds, Yunfang did not intend to continue to conceal it, and said, self-preservation, and then start hard. Quote, 8 million hundred pondered for a while. She originally wanted to say something to comfort Yunfang, but she couldn't think of what words to comfort her. In the end, she had to say in a hurry, Yunfang, you don't need to worry, the school will handle it. Quote, yes, Yunfang, the reason why you killed people is only because you protect yourself, not to mention, he is still a bad person, and he should give you credit. Quote, although the others did not have a good relationship with Yunfang, they still came over and comforted a few words. For their comfort, Yunfang just smiled and said casually, you don't need to be comforted. This actually didn't affect me much. Quote, as soon as Yunfang's voice fell, Aizawa appeared at the door of the classroom, put his hands in his trouser pockets, and shouted at Yunfang inside. Yunfang, come out and follow me to the conference room. Yunfang nodded and stepped forward, looking at Aizawa Wantai. At this time, everyone in the conference room was silent. Some of the people were teachers from this school, of course, Olmec was also sitting in it. The rest are professional heroes, all of them are Yunfangji, and among them is a female professional hero with a bandage wrapped around her head, the same one who said that Yunfang got in the way yesterday. Click. Aizawa came to the conference room with Yunfang, and everyone was stunned by Yunfang. Okay, headmaster, people are coming, you tell him what I said before. The female professional hero said in a deep voice. The principal was silent for a while, and then opened his mouth and asked Yunfang, I heard that you talked to Brain Wu yesterday, right? Quote. Yunfang nodded. At this time, the female professional hero interjected again. Look, I didn't say anything wrong, the brain attacked him, and he also talked to him, he was definitely sent by the enemy. Quote, just like the last USJ incident, you said why the enemy would know the time and place of your class, and now that the truth has come out, he is a traitor. He's my student, I know him, there must be some misunderstanding in this. Aizawa defended Yunfeng. I agree with what Aizawa-kun said. Olmec replied. You all be quiet. The headmaster frowned, and then asked Yunfeng, are you really sent by the enemy? Don't worry, even if it is, we are willing to forgive you. Because you are still young and do not understand things. Quote, I'm not a traitor, believe it or not. Yunfeng replied calmly. Headmaster, don't ask these ignorant questions. Okay, there is that fool who will admit that he is a treacherous, you see, hand him over to the police. The female professional hero shouted. Akiyoshi-kun, this is just your side of the word, this can't let this child leave a shadow in his heart because of your side of the word. Olmec said in a deep voice. Akiyoshi-kun mentioned by Olmec is that female professional hero, formerly known as Naomi Akiyoshi. I'm not a one-sided word, I saw it with my own eyes, he can command brain wu. Olmec, you, as the first hero, can't protect him like this because he is just a child, you are actually harming him, do you know? Naomi Akiyoshi retorted. Okay, Akiyoshi-kun, don't argue, in this way, Merlot Yunfeng, before the truth is revealed, the answer given by the school is to suspend school, and after the truth is revealed, let him go back to school. The principal said, good Lees. It seems that this is the only way to go. Aizawa said in a low voice. No need to stop school, I won't be coming to this place. Yunfeng said expressionlessly. The next moment, he set his eyes on Naomi Akiyoshi and smiled. If there really is a day when you are ready, you will be the first. Quote. With that, Yunfeng turned and left. Cloud wind. Cloud wind, Olmec shouted several times in a row, but Yunfeng did not look back, and the next moment he said to the principal, sorry, I'll go out. Quote. Seeing Olmec go out, Akidoshi Naomi couldn't help but say to the principal again. Headmaster, it doesn't matter if you want to find evidence, but if he leaves during this period of time, it will be very harmful to our professional heroes or society. The principal smiled slightly. Doesn't this need Akiyoshi-kun to worry? Our school's affairs, the school can handle it by itself. Quote. Let's start the meeting here, everyone disperse. Akiyoshi-kun originally wanted to continue the dispute, but now that the principal has said this, she is not stubborn. However, in her heart, she firmly believed that Yunfeng was a traitor sent by the enemy. Everyone thought that today's meeting could be held for a long time, but what they never expected was that it turned out to be the fastest. For the other teachers in the school, they are not too concerned. After all, in their eyes, Yunfeng is just a dispensable student. However, Olmec, who has already eliminated the same thing, one believes that Yunfeng will be a symbol of peace in the future, and the other believes that Yunwind is the best student in his history. Aizawa wanted to leave, but the next second he was suddenly stopped by the principal. Aizawa-kun, wait a minute, I have something I need to ask you. The principal said slowly. Aizawa nodded, and then sat down on the stool in the conference room again. After everyone else left, the principal spoke at this time. Aizawa-kun, what do you think about this? Faced with the principal's inquiry, Aizawa pondered for a while, then replied in a deep voice, although Yunfeng usually doesn't like to contact people. On the other hand, it's a little messy. Quote. However, as his homeroom teacher, I firmly believe that his heart is kind. Alas. At this time, the principal couldn't help sighing, and then said in a deep voice, I hope the thing I am most afraid of does not happen. Quote. What is the headmaster's worst fear? Aizawa looked at the principal suspiciously. The principal nodded, and then explained, what did you say to Akiyoshi-kun when Yunfeng left just now? Quote. If there really is a day, when you are ready, you will be the first. These words, everything that Yunfeng has to say, if he is really forced into an enemy by this society in the future, then he will be the first to kill Akiyoshi-kun. The principal seems to have the same concerns as me, and the Feng group of children is in a rebellious period. The heart is easily affected. If the society continues like this, and the things that Olmec did in vain, the society will inevitably be retaliated by Yunfeng. Yes, Aizawa-kun is right. The principal pondered, and after a long time, he continued to speak. Who broke out this information? Quote. The masses burst out such a thing. for them to do 100 harm and useless. I make a bold guess, for example, this is a trap designed by the enemy alliance. What about the purpose? It is we who conflict with Yunfang to achieve what he wants. Quote. Listening to Aizawa's judgment, the principal nodded and said softly, it makes sense, Yunfang's strength may be exactly what the enemy alliance is afraid of, and he wants to borrow our hands to solve Yunfang. Quote. Aizawa-kun, the school has now decided to cancel the suspension of Merlot Yunfang, and the school will take responsibility for what happened. Aizawa nodded and said, okay, I'll go and inform him now. Quote. On the other side, Olmec explained a lot after catching up with Yunfang, but Yunfang has always insisted, this place, he will not come again. Yunfang once said gratefully to Olmec, Olmec, I know what you did for me in the back, thank you, other things, I dare not promise you anything. Quote. Saying that, Yunfang turned away and walked in the direction of 1A. Leaving Olmec alone in place. The next moment, Aizawa chased after him and asked Olmec, what about Yunfang? Quote. Gone, Olmec said. The school has decided to cancel his suspension notice. Aizawa said too slowly. It's useless, this kid has already decided, he won't be coming back. Aizawa-kun, do you know what is the most heartfelt thing I've ever heard? Aizawa looked at Olmec suspiciously. A child who wants to be a hero, but is forced by society to admit that he is not suitable to be a hero. The most painful thing is that I, as the hero of number 1, am helpless on the sidelines. Aizawa hesitated for a moment, and added, okay, you can't let him leave, tie him to the seat, let him listen to my words first. Quote. Aizawa-kun, even if you tell him now that the principal has withdrawn the suspension notice, with his personality, he will still choose to leave. Olmec said in a deep voice. Although Olmec does not know too much about Yunfang's strength, he still has some understanding of his personality in this period of time. Yunfang is not like others, soft grinding and hard bubbles can make him change his mind, and he is, once he decides the matter, even if you kill him, he will still insist. Phew, Aizawa sighed heavily, helplessly showing his face vividly. This kid is really a headache. As for the suspension of school, let it be, the important thing now is to solve the matter of Yunfang and Brain Wu as soon as possible, and return the innocence of that child. Olmec said slowly. Okay, the only way to do it at present can only be like this, but if you want to find a breakthrough from this matter, you must also be on Yunfang's body. Aizawa replied. Olmec nodded. After school, I will personally go to his house to find out the situation. Quote. Aizawa nodded and said, then you should be busy first, I have to go back quickly, otherwise that kid will have to go home. Quote. Fortunately, Aizawa was able to return in time, because Yunfang had just finished packing up his things and was just about to leave. Aizawa walked too quickly to the podium and said, Yunfang, you sit down first and listen to me. Quote. Yunfang glanced at Aizawa Kianta, and finally sat in the position. For Aizawa Kianta, Yunfang still respected it. Putting aside the respect and disrespect, just because he just said in the conference room, I believe in my students, this sentence, this face to give. Although I hate trouble, today is an exception, and as for what it is, I believe everyone knows. Aizawa said too slowly. All the students did not say a word, quietly looking at Aizawa Wanta. I believe in my students. But at the same time, I also hope that you can trust your classmates. Quote. We have always believed in Yunfang, it is not him who is wrong, but this society. Yunfang protects himself, kills the bad guys with heavy hands, why should the good people follow the bad guys to be buried? It's not fair at all. 8 million people said with their opinions. Yes, yes, I also agree with what 8 million students said. Quote. I agree too. Looking at their unified answers, Aizawa frowned, because what he said was not this thing at all. If it was just the previous self-preservation killing, the school could completely solve it. After all, Olmec had already solved it at that time. Now it has been exposed. At most, Yunfang has received criticism from society, but what Aizawa said is the incident of Yunfang and Brain Wu. Forget it, if you don't know, it's better not to know. Aizawa said helplessly. Saying that, Aizawa slowly walked towards the direction of Yunfang, and said softly, Yunfang, as for the matter of the school that suspended you, the school has cancelled it. I hope you can reconsider. Quote. Suspension from school. Everyone looked at Aizawa and Yunfang with a surprised expression. Don't argue, Aizawa said with a frown, and the next moment, he said to Yunfang, you don't need to give me an answer so quickly. Quote. Don't think about it, I still stick to my ideas. Yunfang said without hesitation. Now Yunfang can be said to have completely lost confidence in this society, and wants to work hard for this society in the future. That's simply impossible. If nothing else, I'll go first. Yunfang slowly stood up and picked up his bag. Aizawa didn't speak, which was regarded as acquiescence. There's going to be a period after that, guys. Yunfang smiled slightly, and then stepped out of the classroom. The whole class looked at the back of Yunfeng leaving, and wanted to say something, but it was like the words were stuck in their throats, and they couldn't say it for a long time. Teacher, how long will the school be suspended? 8,000,000 asked. Aizawa's face was too gloomy, and he replied, it's not the school's problem anymore, it's him, I've dropped out of school. Quote. Drop out. When everyone heard the word dropout, their faces changed. He dropped out of school himself. Midoriya Izuku asked. Aizawa nodded slowly. This fool. I haven't even dueled him yet. Bakugao Katsuki instantly had a green erection. Okay, no more talk, class meeting time. At a certain office, Naomi Akiyoshi kept typing on the computer keyboard, and the next moment, I saw her press the enter key. Finally done. I will never let such people go unpunished. There was anger in her eyes. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.